Hello, 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 hello.
We're going to bring the meeting to order. Can we all stand for the flag salute? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have a roll call. Roll call.
Okay, so do sunshine.
Okay. This meeting is being held in accordance with due public notice thereof and pursuant to the New Jersey State Sunshine Law. Notice of this meeting was advertised in the press, and a copy of same has been posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building. All applicants are hereby advised that should you receive board approval tonight, you must come forward and sign a form which informs you regarding the timing of receiving building permits and mercantile licenses. At the end of your case tonight, please see the board administrator to sign the two information sheets. Roll call.
Tom Collins,
Here.
Adio Santori. Here. Bill Gotchell,
Here.
Clem Wozleski.
Yeah.
Jim Galantino.
Here.
Commissioner Talby. Here. Craig Palmisano.
Here.
Rich Patterson. Here. Margaret Gubernalty. Mike Cristaldi.
Here.
Ned Humphreys.
Here.
Mike Richmond.
Here. Motion to approve the minutes of December 27, 2012.
I make a motion that we approve the minutes.
Approval of resolution.
Wait.
Oh,
Is that a roll call or a voice vote? Yes, all in favor.
all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Approval of resolutions and decisions. Number 58, 2012, Penny Lane. Number 59, 2012, Blumenfeld. Number 60, 2012, Parsons. Can I get a motion to approve
I make a
that?
motion, we approve.
I'll second.
Brenda.
All in favor?
Okay, now I'll make my motion.
All right. Roger, what am I making?
A couple of quick announcements. At 4 o'clock this afternoon, the City Commission passed Ordinance 1-2013, which allowed people to build houses at the new FEMA flood elevations, and changed various other aspects of the ordinance to allow for that to happen. Part of that new ordinance was the creation of a committee consisting of the building inspector, the zoning officer, and one member of the planning board to be appointed by the chairman to adjudicate matters of landscaping, access ways, crawl space issues, and other matters that would avoid zoning variance matters before this board for a period of time, during which we would ascertain whether we needed to make more changes to the ordinance. So right now, since that ordinance passes and it is in effect immediately, we need the chairman to, if he wishes to tonight or at some time in the near future, to select the third person on that committee, a member of this board.
No, there was several members of the board volunteered. Everyone was qualified. I picked Mike Cristaldi to be on that board.
Okay. All right, so that'll be shown in the minutes. It doesn't have to be a vote. It's a selection of, it's an appointment to a committee by the chairman. The other matter is that because the ordinance was passed today, and because Mr. Cristaldi, who's building at 109 North Mansfield Avenue, was able to make certain reductions in the height of the house during construction, that case no longer is on the agenda. It's been taken off because it now meets the current ordinance in effect, and there's no need to go forward with that. Those plans can proceed without this board's action.
We have a continuation of the John Eldoff case. 9212 Monmouth Avenue, Block 330, Lot 33. Stan, you want to take over?
Sure. Mr. Cristaldi, I have to swear you in quickly. Raise your right hand. You swear affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And you fully listened to the tape of the proceeding from the last meeting
I did.
concerning the Eldolf matter?
I did.
Okay, are you prepared to vote on the D variances and C
I am.
variance? Okay. Just a, and you listened to the instructions that I gave the board on the tape?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Balanson?
I have no comment, just that I think Mr. Cristaldi, pursuant to the Land Use Act, is going to need to simply sign a two-line affidavit confirming that he has listened to the tapes
We'll do
of the proceeding.
that. Agreed.
And that should be on file with Joanna.
That will be done. No, thank you. The D variance is essentially for 2 units instead of 1 where it's permitted, and your vote on that, I'm going to let the chairman do that. Do you need me to repeat the C variances quickly?
No, I got it.
Okay.
Good.
How do you vote on the D variance?
I see no impact on the neighborhood with the building the way it was, so bringing the building up to code, I see no further impact, so I vote yes on it.
And as to the C variances, they are for lot area, lot width, side yard setback, rear yard setback, and parking.
As the same, I vote yes.
I believe at this point in time, and I'll let Ms. Casey confirm this, but I believe there's been 5 affirmative votes for the D variance, so that would pass. Is that correct? It was 4 to 3.
Yes.
One last time.
It is now 5 to 1.
Okay, so 5 votes in favor, 1 against.
Affirmative.
In the affirmative, and 1 in the negative. That, the D variance passes at this point in time. It's granted. And C variance has already had passed, but for the record, he voted on that also.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Cristaldi.
All right, we're going to go to our first case, which is Margate Burger LLC.
Roger Rubin? I do. The subject property is the former Sunbank Building on a lot of 125 feet along Ventnor Avenue by 75 feet deep, totaling 9,375 square feet. The site presently contains 10 parking spaces, a freestanding sign, 2 driveways on Frontenac Avenue, and 1 on Franklin. The proposal is to renovate the building as a takeout hamburger restaurant serving hamburgers, fries, drinks, etc. The parking lot would be reconfigured to 9 spaces, which includes 1 van-accessible handicap space, landscape areas, and a 10-foot wide by 56-foot long concrete paver patio, as shown on the Ponzio site plan. The building's interior, per the KBA architect plan, shows basically a large kitchen, an 18-foot long service window, and a multi-purpose room which is for children's parties. No interior seating is proposed other than the party room. The application discusses a trash area as shown in the site plan, trash to be handled by private hauler, and recycling per Public Works. Hours of operation are stated as 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. 5 to 8 employees are proposed. The building, per the architect's plans, has a food truck graphic motif on 3 sides. It is shown as 24 feet high, which appears to be incorrect, and this should be clarified at the hearing. The action required is site plan. Comments. As part of the site plan consideration, the board should consider the layout in terms of safe pedestrian and auto access on the site, aesthetics, and functionality of the proposed business. The use of the paver patio should be clearly discussed. Is it an area in which outdoor seating will be placed? And if so, this should be laid out through the board and factored into the parking discussion. Regarding parking, as the application states, no on-site parking shall be required for existing non-residential floor area within the central business district. However, we have generally interpreted this to mean if there was none and the use was not materially different, none had to be provided. In this case, the use is somewhat different, and I think the board should apply the parking standard as follows. 1 space is required per 5 seats and 20 seats indoors are proposed in the party room, requiring 4 spaces. Also, 1 space is required per 25 square feet of takeout service area. This is about 100 square feet, thus requiring 4 spaces. This adds up to 8 spaces needed and 9 provided. If the discussion of additional patio seating, of additional seating, perhaps on the patio, leads to an outdoor seating layout, a variance might then be required. Building height should be clarified and 8 sets of revised plans submitted if necessary. The city's recycle officer should be empowered to determine viability of proposed trash storage area as well as the overall plan for disposal. Grease traps shall be determined per the Public Works Director. Any conditions put forth by the city engineer review should be conditions of approval if granted, requiring revised plans. Discussion might be useful regarding the hours of operation. If it opens at 7 a.m., it sounds like breakfast would be available. And finally, the board may consider the use in terms of how it fits within the overall commercial mixture in the central business district area of Margate. There is a letter attached from the city engineer in which several recommendations are made for revisions to the plan, and/or waivers may be awarded if the city engineer so desires. And after I wrote that review, I received a letter from the applicant which states the following, that somewhat materially changes the application. Margate Burger is eliminating, this is from Attorney Bailenson, eliminating the use of the interior all-purpose room in favor of a room to be used for employee breaks and other internal uses not associated with customers. In other words, the room will not be used for kids' parties or otherwise. Second, there will be no outside seating. This use will be takeout only with no on-site seating. Should Margate Burger decide to incorporate outside seating in the future, separate application will be made to the planning board. 3, the height as shown in the plans is correct. An unfinished second floor is proposed in the event of future expansion. The area may be used for storage, but will otherwise remain empty in the event of the second floor expansion in the future. And finally, as to the party room being eliminated and no tables proposed in that room, there should be no parking associated with that space. Accordingly, although 9 spaces are provided, only 4 are required for the actual takeout area as calculated and set forth in the report. As such, the use is in, quote, overparked by 5 spaces as 4 are required and 9 provided.
Thank you, Mr. Rubin. Members of the board, my name is Chris Bailenson, and I represent Margate Burger, LLC, and its principals, Dr. Dominic and Tammy Pastor, who are here with us this evening, regarding the old Sun Bank, the former Sun Bank building at 7903 Ventnor Avenue, identified in the tax map as Lot 4 in Block 207.03. That property is located, as we all know, in the CBD zoning district. It is the same property that I appeared before this board quite some time ago and had a miniature golf course approved. That was never constructed due to the appeal process that took that out several years, as we know. What is proposed this evening is a different use for that property, but one that is permitted in the zone. It is, as Mr. Rubin has explained, a takeout hamburger restaurant. I call it a hamburger restaurant because it's going to be called Margate Burger, but as Mr. Rubin correctly points out, there will certainly be other menu items. It will be open early in the morning to approximately 10 o'clock at night, and you'll be able to get items other than hamburgers, but the primary menu and theme and concept is kind of an iconic takeout hamburger restaurant. What you'll see and what I've handed out is a kind of a first for the city of Margate. It's kind of an amusement-themed or iconic-themed food truck concept from exterior appearances only. I mean, the existing building is going to be used but added onto on the second floor, as I have noted. But as you can see from the handout, it's really going to be a vibrant addition to that corner and really a boost to that central business district at that particular end of town. As Mr. Rubin has pointed out, the second floor is proposed at this point in time while all the site work is being done and while the building is being renovated on the inside. The Pastors at some point in time would like to put an apartment upstairs. They just haven't decided. what they're going to do in that regard, and that's a permitted use as well. Whether it's one 3-bedroom apartment or one 2-bedroom apartment, that decision has not been made yet. So they could get open for this summer and save from the contractor's expense when the work is being done. We would like to do that all at one time, though we will condition that approval, should you approve it, on coming back to this board for those apartments, whether it's 1 or 2, at the time they are ready to move forward with that part of the project, or any other use in that area that may come forward. I can tell you the layout is the way it is. We have the additional 5 spaces. They will accommodate that 1 apartment or 2 apartments, whatever it may be. So for purposes of this evening, and this board, if it likes, can say that that 2nd floor, should you build it, will only be used for storage for that downstairs, but no other use is proposed, and any use that goes in there, we would obviously come back to this board for approval. And I think that would be another situation where it would be a by right situation, because we do have the on-site parking. But I didn't want to bog this application down with that at this point, because they would like to get that building back in use for the summertime. We have three witnesses. Dominic, John. They can all be sworn at the same time. Save us a couple minutes. We have a big agenda, it looks like.
Sure.
And just state your name for the record.
John Barnhart,
State
John
your
Torpy,
name and spell your last name.
Torpey.
And your name for the record, sir.
Don Pastore,
And spell your last name.
Pastore.
Please raise your right hands. Do you swear the testimony you read in this matter will be the truth and the truth, and nothing but the truth, nothing but God?
I do.
Mr. Barnhart,
Yes,
you are a licensed professional planner and engineer in the state of New Jersey.
that's correct.
Mr. Patterson or Mr. Richmond, you'll accept Mr. Barnhart's qualifications for this evening? Mr. Berger?
Yes, yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
John, if you would you just
Barely.
go over the zoning of the site and the site plan and what it is proposed, the use
Sure.
and the land use?
As Chris pointed out, he and I and Arthur were together here for a golf course application a number of years ago, which never came to fruition from a construction standpoint. And we're back again this evening with a new property owner and a new idea, which is a pretty interesting idea for the city of Norfolk. The property in question is bound by Frontenac Avenue, Franklin Avenue, and Bettner Avenue. And I'm talking from exhibit, but I guess I'll leave exhibit A1, Chris.
Yes.
And it's just an aerial photo of the area showing the surrounding land uses, commercial uses, and residential uses behind the property. As Chris mentioned, the property is in the central business district, the CBD zone, and the restaurant facility, as proposed, is a permitted use in the zone. The proposal, and I'm now talking from exhibit A2, which is essentially the site plan that was submitted with the application with some color added for clarity. The proposal is to utilize the existing structure, which you see highlighted in yellow on this plan, and renovate the interior completely, and then reskin the exterior, add basically what's going to appear as parapet walls at this point on that 2nd level for purposes of creating a takeout restaurant, which looks like a food truck. Food trucks have kind of become the craze recently. There's one in Rebel Casino. You see some of the local ones in and around different towns. And it's become a very interesting theme type of takeout restaurant. It's become very successful in recent times. So Dr. and Mrs. Pastore have taken on the effort of going forward with this project, and not just renovating the building to get open, but they wanted to then also renovate the site improvements, because as you know right now, the site improvements are essentially entirely an asphalt parking lot with as many spaces geometrically placed in that lot as possible for the former user of being the bank. What the Pastores asked us to do is to try to create some nice pedestrian walk area in front of the building for purposes of people waiting and placing their orders at the takeout window, which would be right in front of the building opposite Bettner Avenue. Also create a nicer parking arrangement and configuration that currently exists that is more in keeping with the current day design standards. And then also trying to incorporate some landscape elements throughout the site, so we're able to buffer the parking lot of Franklin Avenue with some landscape strips. We're able to buffer the building a little bit from Frontenac Avenue with the landscape area, and we have proposed landscaping around the freestanding sign. One of the things that actually doesn't show on this plan, but we discussed with Mr. Pastore, or Dr. Pastore, and it's in keeping with the discussion regarding outdoor seating. Our application plan, the plan that you have in your package, showed a patio area, which contemplated an area for potential either people standing there to eat or sitting to eat. And in discussion, further discussion, and comments from Mr. Rubin's report, and further discussion with Dr. Pastore and his wife, they decided that they don't want to promote that at this location. They would like people to either come up by bike, come by car, walk up, get their food, take it home, take it to the beach, do whatever they want to do, but not necessarily provide seating in the area, which brings trash and noise and some of the other elements that sometimes are an issue in an outside location. So what we would like to do as a condition of approval is actually extend that curb line around to make a very nice mulch bed with landscape area for that area. So what it will do is it'll more consistently direct pedestrian traffic along the sidewalks and get them to the front of the building. It'll keep that potential for pedestrians to come straight across the drive aisle as they just typically would because of the path of least resistance. It'll make traffic flow and pedestrian flow safer for the people coming to the facility. And frankly, it'll beautify the corner. You currently have a site that is essentially 100% impervious, and you're now going to add a very nice landscape element right on that corner, which will be the forefront of a very, very interestingly done building. So,
John, there was a conscious decision at that location, you and I sat and talked about it, to take those two parallel spaces out of there for the site safety reasons and for the pedestrian
there
reasons
was, that's
back and
correct.
forth to the
There
window.
were, I'm sure everybody's familiar with the site, but there are parallel parking spaces at this location right now. One sits here and one sits here. And the more we looked at it, because we're now promoting all this pedestrian traffic coming to a takeout window, we didn't want vehicles sitting here and here and pedestrians being able to walk through between two vehicles as another vehicle's coming into the driveway and potentially creating a hazard or an accident. So what we had originally proposed was to line this area with a decorative bollard to create a more safe condition. But in this last revision, we now have a situation where we completely secured this corner so that motorists and pedestrians have very direct paths in which they need to travel.
Just to touch upon the parking requirement, Margate's ordinance requires one space per 25 square feet of takeout service area, which would be the area outside the window, which in this case is about 100 square feet in front of those windows.
That's correct.
And we do provide those 4 spaces on site.
We do. In fact, we have 9 spaces on site. That's correct.
Site circulation, as has been indicated, will be, I believe, from that.
Coming off of Frontenac Avenue through and out into Franklin Avenue. There's an existing service corridor in the back of the building, which is intended to remain. That service corridor would be for delivery drop-off, loading or unloading. And also, we propose to have a trash enclosure against the building, and that trash enclosure would be rear to the trash bin would come right through, would not create any movements that are difficult on the site. And dumpsters will be rolled out, trash picked up, and then they're on their way.
And obviously with some landscaping, drainage on that site will be better.
Yes, landscaping will be improved because we are reducing impervious cover.
And we have discussed making sure that the vent fan is directed away from the residential neighborhood to... Oh, I'm sorry, that's unusual. And we have discussed we are going to make sure that the vent fan is directed away from the residential neighborhood to the rear.
It's my understanding that's correct, yes.
That's all the questions I have for Mr. Barnhart. I mean, John, the plan otherwise complies with the ordinance, no variances, no discretionary relief?
There are no variances requested at this time, that's correct.
We addressed the time of deliveries and pickups and so forth.
Time of deliveries, we actually haven't discussed that.
During hours of operation?
What are the hours of operation?
They may be likely from 7 to 10, approximately.
Maybe someone might live there, might be concerned about trucks and things going through that road, so something that
And we have actually discussed maybe doing deliveries off our patio and doing them in the front instead of the rear, but that's obviously going to be an operational issue that we'll work out going forward.
Trash trucks will be going down the back alley there then,
That's the intention,
Sunday
that's
morning at
correct.
5:30?
I'm sorry?
Sunday morning at 5:30?
The schedule is obviously dictated by the contract they signed.
I
but-
just,
That's how nice the neighbors are.
there you go.
You probably won't be able to get a trash truck down there.
I don't
It
think
won't
so,
fit.
Tom. won't fit.
I think there's enough room there.
Down that garage.
What I think,
14 feet?
what I think is gonna happen, we've discussed it with Dr. Pastore, we're probably gonna do trash deliveries off hours, and it's probably gonna be from the front of the building. We're gonna push the dump,
That's-
push the dump around. I mean,
If you could suggest that to the front of the building, I think it'd be a lot better.
That's actually the discussion we had.
John, you don't allow traffic in from Franklin Avenue?
Are we allowing traffic in from Franklin Avenue? We're not intending to.
Well, Mr. Wahlberg in his report asked the traffic be directed from front neck to front. So as not to have two-way traffic flowing through the site with pedestrians, I think just keep it one.
That's just 2-1 Street.
You're going to submit a revised landscape plan, John?
Yeah, we will, because we want to show you what is actually intended for that proposed bed.
John? Yes. Briefly.
Chris, there'll be signage for the ingress and egress then?
Yes. John, you work with the architectural firm that prepared the architectural plans and came up with this food truck concept along with the Pastores,
Yes,
and prepared that handout that's been distributed.
correct.
Now, the artwork, I'll say, or the exterior treatments for this building are not something that we have seen regularly here in Margate, and are kind of looking forward to it, but would like, I think everybody would like to know how you plan to carry this out.
Well,
What kind of materials you're going to use?
sure. You've seen it, you just haven't seen it all put together like this. The construction, standard stick frame construction, exterior will be stucco finish, that lime green color that you see. The detail work, however, is going to take on more of a molded acrylic finish, similar to that of the other attachments to that handout at the Ocean City Tabernacle that our office also did, which would be those characters coming out of the ark that protrude. The bumper, the headlights, the wheel wells, the character in the upper left corner of the oversized truck design, those sorts of features will take on that three-dimensional acrylic finish. Outside of that, really we use that to just give off this West Coast lunch truck feel with those vibrant colors. So they're just applied to the exterior of the building. They'll come out no more than 2.5 inches.
I've marked the handout A3.
Thank you.
It's a little confusing if you look at it. The windows, the oversized windows, the driver and the rear windows, those are not windows. They will be part of that applique, that acrylic. The windows that only exist are the service area there in the front, which is under that overhang. And also the wheels themselves are windows into the structure. They act at a halfway point of that wheel. They will act as the service counters where they'll get their condiments.
About the back of the truck, are they real windows here?
The ones up top, no. No. Anything that's oversized in scale is part of the acrylic applique. There is a rear door access there, and there's just some minimal glass proposed in those doors.
How do you get to the second floor?
There is no access proposed to the second floor.
Is there anything put in for flood proofing?
On the existing structure itself,
Knowing what you're gonna be doing?
well, it's still in the construction document phase, so those things will be attended to in that submission to construction, but what you have in front of you, they will, if there is requirements, they'll be hidden inside of those appliques.
And Mr. Humphreys, what John had mentioned to me, there may be a pull down for upstairs just in case of an emergency, but there's, at this point in time, there's no stairs proposed, no elevator, no real internal access other than a hatch or a pull down to stick it up there in the event of an emergency.
Okay.
Utilized for storage use only.
Yeah, for on-site only.
Unless you come back to the board for it.
Exactly.
Any other questions?
Chris, I didn't see any lighting, any parking
Parking lot lighting?
Yeah, anything?
Any proposal beyond what, John, have you looked at the parking lot lighting?
We weren't showing any new lighting, but we have to submit revised plans anyway, so we'll take a look at it, see what the light levels are, and if we need to add something to make sure that it's meeting the ordinance.
Jimmy, what is the ordinance for shared driveway? Can't affect the neighbor. That's all.
Anything on the back, Jimmy, we'll have a shield.
Sure. It was asked about the lighting on the building itself. Proposed in our construction plans, the canopy will have downlighting, and then there'll be several smaller accent lights on the exterior just shining onto the building. Nothing of a flood nature, just small accent lights.
Mr. Rubin, a thought occurred to me as I see that plan. There are no signs proposed on either of the side street frontages where they would otherwise be permitted.
Yeah.
There is some lettering shown on the canopy, and there is a building-mounted identification sign.
Yeah,
To
the,
the extent that requires relief, I would ask to be permitted to show those two signs on the front of the building, but not to exceed anything we would otherwise be permitted by utilizing the sides of the building for additional signage, which I think
the second sign on the front is an additional variance.
we would ask for that variance, and the justification for that would be that we are not proposing any signage on either of the side street frontages where we would otherwise be permitted a fairly substantial size sign based on the size of this lot.
What are your plans for inflicting smoke, gas, odors,
There will be a vent fan off the roof, I believe. Correct. And that is going to be for the front of the building and directed away from the residential neighborhood to the rear.
It'll also be hidden by the height of the parapet. So visually from the street, you won't be able to see any of that rooftop unit.
That's all we have. I mean, Dr. Pastore is here. If you'd like to hear from
Just
him.
one quick question.
Yes.
The rear of the building that faces the residential neighborhood, that's not a truck, that's just a plain commercial wall, right? Okay.
That's all I have.
And will there be a fence up behind that? I think
Yes,
there's one now.
there will be a fence.
Okay.
If the one, I think it's white vinyl right now, if that's not replaced, and if it's in good shape, that will remain. The only thing I had asked Mr. Wahlberg, and he had not gotten back to me, he had suggesting replacing the sidewalks both down Franklin and Frontenac Avenue. That is not something we had anticipated doing with the scope of the work in this job. I had asked for that waiver. We are, on the other hand, redoing the entire parking lot, the asphalt, parking surfaces, restriping all of that, redoing the curb around the building, but we had not proposed to redo those sidewalks or those driveway aprons.
Chris,
Yes.
would you object to a condition that the trash trucks are not allowed down that 14'7"?
I would not agree to that because I don't know what the schedule's going to be yet, Mike. I don't want the trash truck.
I mean, the city gets a lot of phone calls on Sunday. The city gets a lot of phone calls on Sunday morning for trash trucks of existing buildings. Now, we're approving a new one, or possibly approving a new one.
But I mean,
And are we creating a problem doing that?
he's asking for that. I'm not saying you should do it.
My only comment about that, and you've heard this before,
We didn't
is
get an answer from Walmart.
everybody who has purchased a house behind the CBD zone is aware they have purchased a house behind the CBD
So they
zone.
agree the airport.
And that, and, I mean, if that's the most efficient way to do the trash, that's the way we'd like to have the option to do it. We'll discuss with the hauler, it's gonna be a private hauler, not to use that area. But I don't think it's necessarily gonna work because the dumpster has to be pulled out anyway. I think that's not gonna be a situation we see, because I can't promise that, and there's not much we can do.
About working with my office, that they can work out some schedule that's.
If there becomes a problem and it becomes an issue, and you become aware of it, Dr. Pastore would be more than happy to work on that with you.
Is that okay?
That's not a problem.
What's that?
If there's any complaints, I take it up with the owner of the burger company, and then we'll work it out with our schedule. Is that okay, Roger?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Does anybody else on the board have any other questions?
Chris, in
Yes.
terms of, it doesn't really trouble me because I didn't really take a good look at the sidewalk.
Okay.
But if Wahlberg didn't respond to you, which you said, it's kind of like a little bit of a gray area. So if we grant that you're not going to replace the sidewalks,
Yep.
we would want to, if possibly, stipulate that any repairs or maintenance that's required by the city engineer be part of the approval.
Any hazardous conditions that could cause pedestrian problems?
Yeah.
That's no problem.
Chris, there is one in your ES5, number 5, in Wahlberg's report, asked for ADA,
Corner ramp, we're not required to replace the corner ramps, so that's not the applicant's responsibility. I've asked for that waiver as well. Those ramps exist there now, I don't know why. I know they were built by the city, and I have heard they may not comply with the current standard, but that cost shouldn't be turned over to Dr. Pastore, and that's not fair.
As you well know, you're aware of it, that the zoning in Margate along Benton Avenue is not the greatest in the world, since commercial borders residential right smack on the same line. I don't want to sit here and give your applicant a carte blanche for deliveries, trash pickup, or anything as far as time goes, because of the proximity to the Portuguese line residential area. You zero in on that, not leaving it up to the delivery truck, or anything like that?
Tell me what you think, Mr. St.
Well, my idea would be, I'm going to give you time to give a situation whereby if a delivery is being made in the middle of the night, that's going to be possible.
It's not anywhere there to take delivery in the middle of the night, number one. I mean, you can agree that no deliveries after midnight, something to that effect. There may be a situation where you have a delivery span after hours, say from 10 to 12, but I can agree to a condition that there's no deliveries between 12 a.m. and 6 a.m. If that, I mean,
I wouldn't be happy with that situation, but that's what you're proposing.
and we've been very lucky. Our central business district has been very, very fortunate the last several years. We've got people willing to invest in Margate because of the way Margate's been operating and treating their businesses. I'd hate to see that go in the wrong direction. I mean, they do. Everybody does the best. It's not Wawa. It's not open all night long where they get delivered all night long. And everybody does the best they can to control that.
There are many more intense uses that could be used with this property.
Miniature golf course.
Like a golf course.
I mean, I think the concern is, I mean, if the hours of operation are at 11 p.m., I mean, maybe at 10 p.m. it's a curfew in Margate, something like that. In the morning for the trash pickup, maybe.
I mean,
you know, I'm not trying to put it on, but you're to make it like that someone has to complain and then we're going to deal with it. It's probably better to just talk about maybe what the intentions are right now with that, because
The intent.
I think the project is well presented.
The intention is to have those deliveries when there's somebody there to accept them.
Right.
It's not like Wawa, like I said, where deliveries can come at 3 o'clock in the morning because there's somebody there. That's not, I mean, you can expect deliveries to come during hours of operation, maybe in the morning immediately prior to opening, but you're not going to have a situation where you're going to have deliveries at 4 o'clock in the morning. It's just not going to happen.
I mean, the board. I think the board understands the zone that it's in, but they also have to protect the
I understand.
neighbors, and there's residential. We want to minimize that impact as much as possible. So.
Does anybody from the public have any comments? Okay, public portion is closed. We're going to go for the vote.
I have a list of conditions.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay.
Everything got up?
Okay. Gentlemen, Mike. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
State your full name,
Todd Murphy,
Just make a motion.
and your home address.
11 North Franklin Avenue.
Okay, we're going to make a motion to open it to the public.
Second. Is there a second?
I'll second.
I'll second.
Please raise your right hand. You swear the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do. I'd just like to say, I think it's a great idea, it's a great concept. I am concerned about the trash and the trucks. With respect to Mr. Balanson, why would you want to deal with the problem after the fact with the neighbors? If you can put it out front now and deal with the issue, then you won't have a problem with any of the neighbors going forward. So my suggestion is, as you suggested, let's put it out there now. Let everybody be happy, and then you won't have any complaints coming through the building department. My suggestion is definitely have the trash trucks out front, have them roll the dumpster to the front, and I think everybody would be happy that way. It is a concern because that back alleyway, I don't know if you're familiar with it, but a lot of kids, when they're going to the beach, they used to cut through there. If that's going to be closed off or not, that would be a concern. So if you have trucks going through there, that may be an issue with some of the kids coming through. So my suggestion would definitely be to have the trash truck or the deliveries in the front of the building. So that's the comment I had. Thank you.
The back alley will remain open as it always has been, and again, we are agreeable to a condition, should the board want to impose a condition, that there will be no trash or deliveries between the hours of 12 a.m. and 6 a.m.
But are you agreeable to a condition that the trash will be
No.
picked up on Ventnor
No.
Avenue?
No. No.
How about Franklin Avenue?
Excuse me?
How about trash pickup on Franklin?
Commissioner Talbot, I think these days the trash pickup people like to do it as conveniently to them as possible. I don't think they're going to push, unfortunately, the dumpster all the way to Franklin Avenue. And I don't think the city wants the dumpster pushed out to Franklin Avenue to wait for the trash truck. That would just cause more problems than it's worth, I think.
What they're going to do is they're going to pull down one of the side streets, double park, hold up traffic, which is better than holding up Ventnor Avenue, roll the dumpster out the shortest distance, dump it. It's about a 3 or 4 minute. It's just a logical progression of what happens in Margate.
I think,
If you put it on Ventnor Avenue, then Ventnor Avenue, you'd have a big trash truck sitting there stinking up the neighborhood and waiting while they roll that thing. That'll be a 10 or 15 minute
quite frankly,
process.
I think Tom's right. Quite frankly, I don't think they're going to want to spend the time or the aggravation to try and navigate the site in the trash truck. You're probably right, Commissioner. They probably are going to take it off the side street. When you come to think of it, I don't know if they're going to try and get a trash truck down that back alley.
You're gonna have a driveway in and a driveway out in front.
That's right.
The trash truck will be just as close in the front as it will be in the back. The trash companies are there when no cars are there and no people are there. So if they go in that driveway, stop at that gate, dump off, and go right on out.
In the front, through
On
the front.
They won't be on the street, they won't be in the back, and they're never there when they're in operation.
But
They
you-
just can't deal with the cars
You
around.
will not be able to tell these guys, I have the service. They don't care. You can tell them all you want. They don't care.
If the gate's in the front there that closes off those two things, they're like water going downhill. They're gonna find the easiest way, and that's gonna be it. If they tell them to do that, that's what they have to do. They'll do that. They won't, the trash company will not pick up while cars are on the driveway. What's that?
We agree to limit the hours of trash pickup. We agree to limit the hours of deliveries. 12 a.m. to, no trash, no deliveries, 12 a.m. to 6 a.m. Other than
If they do it
that,
after 7, it's gotta be in the back.
other than that, we'd like to operate as anybody else is entitled to operate.
Okay, so are we going to make that a condition or not?
No,
No?
I don't think
Okay, this is the list. Is there any other public? I don't know if the public is done.
Is the public done?
And that's if the board wants that condition. I'm offering it up. I'm not.
How would you even word it? How would you word that as a condition?
We just word that there's not going to be any deliveries between 12 midnight and 6 in the morning.
Trash pickup.
That
Trash
we're gonna
pickup.
do.
Well, the deliveries you're not gonna get unless the store's open, so that's
Right.
not
Well,
even an issue.
an hour
It's the issue
before
of
it
a
opens.
trash truck coming
Right, so
in the middle of the night. I call it God 30 is when they come.
are we
dealt
going to
with
make
all
a
we can.
condition that it's not going to be between the hours of 12
And 6
a.m.
a.m.
and 6 a.m.
For trash or delivery?
for trash?
Yes.
Yes.
Or some other condition.
Why don't we just keep this simple? Why, we don't,
I'm just saying,
okay.
they've offered a condition. You don't have to accept the condition, or you can make your own condition.
Is there any more public for the third? No. Okay, public portion is closed.
Okay, this is my list of conditions. No trash or deliveries between midnight and 6 a.m. Any necessary repairs to the sidewalks for safety purposes will be done in accordance with the city engineer's dictates. Site lighting will be shielded from the residence to the rear. The 8 sets of revised plans to be submitted satisfying all non-waivable city engineer requirements. The city's recycle officer will determine the adequacy of the trash storage as shown on the plan and the disposal plan. Grease trap will be provided as set forth by the Public Works Director, if and as. The second floor will be for storage only, and any usage other than storage will have to return to this board. 8 sets of revised plans to be submitted showing the interior plan of the interior floor plan showing elimination of the party room, and 8 sets of revised plans submitted showing the conversion of the patio to a landscape area.
Mr. Rubin, there'll still be a room there, it's just not going to be used for the public.
Yeah, but it's not a party room. It's
Well,
whatever
employee lounge,
staff-
relabel it employee, fine, okay.
Yeah, right. But no public goes inside the building.
And just so the condition with respect to the sidewalk is clear, there's no requirement to replace the ADA ramps at the corners, and there's no requirement to replace the sidewalks, but to repair them.
Well, this board has always allowed the city engineer to issue waivers. You deal with him on that,
Okay.
okay?
I'm letting the board be aware that those conditions are something that this applicant is not required to do with the site plan application. I just haven't heard back from Mr. Wahlberg, and I don't want that to bog this down going forward, where that
It is with the variance for your sign application.
and we have to deal with the second sign on the front.
Okay.
That's it. It's a C variance for 2 signs instead of 1.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, we ready? Can I get a motion to...
I'll make the motion, we approve the application with the amendments
second
that Roger just read.
The board just make sure you understand there's a C variance request at this point in time for signs you have to vote on.
Site plan and C variance.
Exactly.
Roger and Chris, can I, we just go over the sidewalk again, there was some back and forth. I understand that it does not have to be replaced, but you're going to make it so that it's safe and level for walking.
The city engineer can examine it and determine if there are any tripping hazards, so areas or spots that need to be repaired.
But we're not waiving the engineer conditions, that's up to the engineer.
First 9
Okay.
Tom Collins?
I vote in favor of the application. The site's been pretty desolate for a long time. Not quite sure how this big food truck is going to look, but I'm sure once we see it, maybe it'll be a second Lucy and Margie's. I vote in favor.
Adio Santori?
Well, it's no longer a gas station, for those of us who remember the gas station there. It's not a golf course, it's almost approved. There were some more intense uses that could be made of this property for the neighborhood. Unfortunately, Margate zoning along Ventnor Avenue where the commercial is, like I mentioned, Mr. Valentin, is not ideal. You have commercial abutting residential. I hope to approve the application with the hope that the applicant will consider his neighbors, and I think business people always knows that we allow residential neighbors.
Bill Gotchall?
Yeah, I'm going to vote in favor, and I think it's a good for the site. It's been, like Tom said, it's been vacant for too long, so it'll bring some activity to that area there. And we have a big elephant and not a big one.
Glenn Wozleski?
Well, the architecture's kind of bizarre, but it's certainly no worse than an abandoned bank. I agree with Adio, it's not the highest and best use, but I don't think it's going to have a negative impact on the area, so I vote yes.
Rich Patterson?
I love the architecture. I vote in favor. I think it's a use that fits well in the neighborhood. It's in keeping with the intentions of the master plan. With the effort that's going into improving the space, I would assume that the owner would have the neighbors in mind. It's just so I agree with the application.
Jim Galantino?
I vote in favor for a C variance for Margate Burger. I think it'll be an asset to the section of town that needs a little bit of a lift. And I commend the applicant for a nice concept. Thank you.
Commissioner Tawby?
I, too, vote in favor. I think it goes along with our master plan. Restaurants are permitted in the zone. I think it'll beautify the corner, which is an improvement over what is there or what hasn't been there. The parking spots are more than adequate, and I wish them luck. Thank you.
Keep going.
Mike Cristaldi?
I think it's a great concept. I think they put a lot of thought into it. I think it'll be good for the city. As Rich said, I hope they're thoughtful to their neighbors, and I do approve it. I think it's a great idea.
Michael Richmond?
I'm going to vote yes. I think it's a great idea. I think it'll brighten up that part of town. I think it's kid-friendly, which we need a little bit more of in Margate, so I vote yes.
Thank you all very much.
That passes 9 votes. Yes, 0 negative.
Okay, we're going to go to our next case, which is 16 Michigan Avenue Corp., DBA Heritage Surf and Sport, and 9219 Ventnor Avenue, LLC, 9223 Ventnor Avenue, Block 226, Lot 83, in the CBD District, to grant site plan and parking variance to reconfigure existing store into enlarge a space. Taxes are current and notifying and advertising satisfied.
That was a switch in the agenda, slight switch. Roger Rubin.
You swear the testimony you're about to give us now will be the truth and truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do. The subject property is a 2-story building with Heritage Surf Shop using the entire first floor, actually 3 storefronts, and with 6 rental apartments on the second floor. Per the plans submitted herewith, Heritage wishes to expand into about 1,303 square feet of the second floor area, arranged as a mezzanine over the first floor and accessed by a new set of steps. The purpose is to provide surfboard and wetsuit sales in the second floor space, additional changing rooms, an employee lounge, and other amenities. No new product lines are proposed. This expansion is part of an overall renovation and remediation as a result of Hurricane Sandy. In addition, the landlord will convert 1,475 square feet of second floor to office space, and so the 6 apartments will be eliminated. Technically, per 175-14A 1C, the office space does not need site plan action, but it is presented here to round out the picture for the planning board. Actions required are site plan for the expanded Heritage business. Comments: there is no parking variance required. The apartments which are being eliminated require 11.4 parking spaces. The square footage of retail at 1 space per 200 square feet, and the office at 1 space per 300 square feet yields, by coincidence, exactly 11.4 spaces required. Second, natural expansion of one of Margate's most enduring and viable businesses should certainly be considered by this board as advantageous to the community in general.
Thank you, Mr. Rubin. Members of the board, my name is Chris Balance, and I represent Heritage Surf and Sport, which is 16 something Michigan Avenue, LLC. It's on the application. And Galanos Management. Randy Young's here from Heritage. Yanni Galanos is here from Galanos Management. It's for the building that Mr. Galanos owns at the corner of Washington Avenue and Ventnor Avenue, Heritage Surf Shop. And I don't know if everybody knows, but there are 6 apartments above that building. What is proposed by this application is a by right site plan approval, really, as Mr. Rubin pointed out, really just for the Heritage expansion, to move Heritage upstairs, to make it more like, for those of you who may have been there, their store in Ocean City has their retail lines downstairs in terms of clothing accessories, surfboards, and wetsuits upstairs. Just makes for a more pleasant shopping experience between people who are in to buy surfboards and people who are in to buy clothes. It also, for those of us who have been in that shop before the storm, it was very tight. There's a lot of inventory in there. It's really going to give a nice opportunity to spread that inventory out and make it a better shopping experience. Approximately 1,300 square feet upstairs is going to be retail. Approximately 1,500 square feet is going to be Mr. Galanos' office, which he's actually already moved up in there because his office on Washington got flooded. All of those apartments are being eliminated, which allows the building obviously to be converted to full retail and office which is just a perfect location at that corner, a perfect use in the CBD district. I mean, we all know that Heritage has just been an exceptional retailer. Mr. Glanos has been an exceptional landlord and really helped that end of town. Both of these guys deserve a lot of credit for what they do down at that end of town, and it's nice and refreshing to see this business expanding in that building with this type of application. And it's a type of application that doesn't require any variances. It's simply asking to use a different part of the building for retail and/or office. Randy can speak to this if you'd like. Yanni can speak to this as you like. I don't believe I need any testimony. It's a by right site plan with no discretionary relief. I will not bog down Mr. Callahan, who very nicely let me speak ahead of the Barrels case. So I'm not going to present any testimony other than what has been set forth in the application and in the plan submitted.
Any questions from the board?
Hey, Chris?
Yes,
Does
Clem.
this architect have a New Jersey license?
That architect is a good friend of Randy's and has done this for him as a favor, and he's licensed in New Jersey.
Any other questions? Anybody from the public have any comments, questions? Okay, public portion is closed. Can I get a motion? There's a wait. Roger, do you have
I'd like to
anything?
make a motion that we approve the by rights.
I'll second.
Excuse me?
Subdivision?
Oh, okay.
No conditions.
Somebody second that?
I did.
Okay.
Same 9.
Tom Collins?
I vote in favor of the application. With the growing changes in Margate, the highest and best use in this area is for retail. I think it's a very creative use of the space. It's going to have no negative impact on the neighborhood. Actually, it's going to bring a positive impact because it's lowering density and providing a really good service for the community. So I vote in favor.
Adia Santori?
I welcome the opportunity to help a well-established business in Atlantic City, Margate City. My garage is full of circulating my 4 sons and all my grandchildren. But it's not a situation where I think it would be harmful, and I think it would be helpful, especially with the reduction of the apartments that are upstairs that I understand are not constructed apartments for market. I hope to approve the application.
Bill Gottrell?
I also vote to approve the application as stated by the previous two. I think the elimination of apartments in favor of retail is a positive thing for downtown Margate, and so I vote in favor.
Clem Osleski?
I think the elimination of the apartments is a good thing, and do a little bit to alleviate parking. It's a good proposal, I vote yes.
Rich Patterson?
I also vote yes for the
Jim Galantino?
I vote yes for the application for Heritage, and Yanni finally gets an office on Washington Avenue.
Commissioner Tawby?
Way back in the day, I had a TCBY franchise on 9219 Avenue, 9219 Ventnor Avenue, which was between both of your stores. And the apartments upstairs were really not, I mean, they were horrible. So I'm thrilled that you're cleaning that out and putting retail up there. And I'm also proud that I remember when you were one little store, and now you're like 4. So congratulations, and I vote to approve.
Mike Cristaldi?
I think it's great that a store in Margate's growing and helping the city and going along with that. I vote yes. I think it's a great idea.
Mike Richmond?
I think it's a good use of the space, and I vote yes.
Thank you all very much. Have a nice evening.
Passes 9-0.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
You're welcome, Yanni.
Okay. Our next case is Barrels Joint Venture, 9 South Granville Avenue, Block 108.02, Lot 19 in CBD District, to grant a D variance, C variances, and subdivision to demolish Barrels Restaurant and build 2 new single-family homes. taxes are current, and proof of advertising and notification is satisfied.
Stanley, you want to announce who's stepping down?
Oh, yeah, thank you. This is a zoning board application, so Commissioner Talby has to step down, Jim Galantino has to step down. Tom Collins has to step down.
Take a break.
I think it'd be the first 7 votes, include Mike Cristaldi as the alternate. We get, I think it's 7.
Jim wants an explanation.
An employee of the city permitted to vote on the zoning application.
And there's 7 members.
It's a 7-member board, but that's not why he's not on. He's not.
Okay. All right, Roger Rubin.
Further testimony about the this matter will be the truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do. The subject property is the Barrels Restaurant building and grounds running from Gladstone to Granville Avenues, 84 feet of frontage by 80 feet of depth, with total area of 6,720 square feet. The proposal herein is to subdivide the property into 2 lots and construct thereon 2 single-family homes per the submitted plans by Arthur Ponzio and Peter Weiss. The house lots would each be 42 feet by 80 feet, 3,360 square feet of land, and each would be 2 stories and have 5 bedrooms. If the board considers the first floor study and full private bath to be a bedroom, then it's considered a 5-bedroom house. Each would have 3 parking spaces, enough for 5 bedrooms, and each would be fronted on Granville with rear and parking on Gladstone. Actions required are a D, use variance for first floor residential usage within the CBD zone, which does not permit same. Minor subdivision, 1 lot into 2, not a by right subdivision. C variances for lot area, 4,000 square feet is required. It is 3,360 for each. C variance for lot width, 50 feet required versus 42 feet. And front landscape area on Granville, 46% versus 60% required. Comments? If approved, compliance with all city engineer requirements should be a condition, with 8 sets of revised plans accordingly submitted. Number 2, the use variance is of course critical and subject to the board's consideration of the integrity of the land use ordinance versus the possibility that conditions here may warrant relief. There are a number of opposing factors at play in this situation requiring your judgment and wisdom. The block is overwhelmingly commercial, while the blocks across both streets are heavily single-family and duplex residential. As to parking, will 2 single-family houses improve the present situation or not? Most of Barrel's patronage is later afternoon and evening, and they do have a lot with about 9 spaces. Also consider that the driveways for the 2 proposed houses are located where there is currently a no parking loading zone, which is important for nearby merchants, not just Barrels. Number 3, there is the question of side street commercial as to viability of businesses where visibility by passing cars is not as good as through streets such as Ventnor Avenue. This issue can be contrasted, however, with the Granville Avenue office residential complex to the north of this property, which seems to have been viable for a number of years. The significant decision herein is the use variance as well as the implications pro or con about parking and loading. If the board gets past those issues, the C variances are not that significant as they apply to commercial structures, and the house layouts do largely conform to the other nearby residences in terms of size, scale, lot size, parking, height, etc. And I would refer to a January 28, 2013 letter by the city engineer, and if approved tonight, those non-waivable conditions should be a condition of any approval.
Good evening. Brian Callahan of the law firm Callahan Thompson Thompson on behalf of the Barrels Joint Venture. Property is located at 9 South Granville, Block 108.02, Lot 9. As Roger indicated, it's in the CBD zone, which permits residential at the 2nd floor, but does not permit residential at the 1st floor. Therefore, a single-family home that would be a 1st and 2nd floor is not permitted. If you had a condominium or a townhouse on top of commercial, it is permitted. And the application tonight is to take down barrels and to create a minor subdivision so 2 new single-family homes could be permitted. So we're seeking a D variance, as the CBD zone does not permit the single-family home, and we would be seeking C variances for lot area, lot width, and front landscaping. I have a number of witnesses here tonight. We have John Barnhart, Peter Weiss, Rose Qualtieri, who's the owner, John Taddy, who was part of the joint venture, who would be the builder. Mr. Bergman, why don't we swear all 4 in? Therefore, if the board has questions, it won't interrupt the continuity to go in and do it.
That's fine. I'll have Jackie swear him in. If they
Jackie.
can all stand.
You all stand, please.
Spell your last name, please.
Gualtieri.
John Taddy, T-A-D-D-E-I. Peter Weiss.
And your name, please.
John Barnhart.
Would you raise your right hand? Do you swear the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
I'd like to call Mr. Weiss first, just so that he can really give you an idea of the type of single-family homes that are going to be built, size, materials going to be used, that type of evidence.
We can dispense with the board here, but he's qualified. He's testified before this board.
Peter, they said you've testified before the board before, once or twice, so qualification-wise, you're good to go. Why don't you walk the board through what they intend to do with the property?
Well, we took the existing lot, proposed to take the existing lot, put it right down the middle,
Go ahead. And Mr. Bergen, the architectural plan will mark as A1.
Thank you.
The houses we developed are 2-story, about 2,500 square feet each. They each have the living space and on the ground floor, along with a kind of study space that could second as a bedroom. Upstairs, there's 4 bedrooms and 3 bathrooms. The height is several feet under whatever the maximum would be, because they're only about 25 feet. As you can see, the entrances are off the Granville Avenue, which faces the other houses. So the houses across the street will never see the parking and that sort of thing, because it's all pushed to the other street, which is the commercial area. The houses, I think, in terms of, as Roger pointed out, in terms of size, scale, number of bedrooms, all that kind of thing, are very consistent with the houses that are across the street. So to that extent, I think they fit well in with the existing properties.
Material-wise, what are we planning on how to develop them?
I believe it'll be vinyl siding on the outside. Yes.
From a setback point of view, in looking at the other surrounding residential setbacks, they meet. We're going to provide some open-air, light space, landscape areas.
Yes.
I don't have any other questions. Mr. Weiss, I will open up to the board.
And you're putting,
Well, at the moment, yes. I mean, there might be some, as they're developed, they might change a little bit, just so they're not exactly the same, but, for all intents and purposes, yes.
Anybody else on the board have any questions?
How much higher than your drawing? So I see you got elevation 11.2.
I think I saw in the report, we'll probably have to go up 2 feet, I believe, to meet the current FEMA requirements. And this project was started a while ago, before the maps came out. Yeah.
So the floor would actually be, 6 feet above the sidewalk?
Maybe a little bit more than that, yeah. I mean, if we're going up 2 feet, we're going to add basically 4 steps to each, 3 or 4 steps to each house to get into it.
So that'll require the steps then to be extended? Okay. You're going to have to turn the
We could probably recess, 1 or 2 steps into the deck. I mean, the deck is fairly deep, so I mean, some of it could be cut into the deck. If there's a concern about how far the steps are from the sidewalk.
And here's also why we passed a new committee tonight to take a look at exactly those kind of issues that we're facing, how we're going to deal with crawl spaces and decks and staircases with the new FEMA requirements. Mr. Barnhart? Mr. Bergman, do you want me to go through his qualifications, or can we dispense with them?
We can dispense with the board members. The board accepts him as an expert.
John, why don't we start with, we'll call it A2, and describe the existing site and its location, and what's existing right now, and how we propose to change it.
Sure. Okay. Exhibit A2 is an aerial photograph of the site in question, with the site being labeled as you can see here, generally right in the center of the exhibit. The property is the current site of the Barrels Restaurant. It is currently located in the Central Business District, the CBD zone, and it is surrounded by a multitude of different types of land uses. If you look to the left on this plan, you can see basically an entire block, which actually extends even further, of single-family residential land uses. If you look adjacent to our property in either direction, you have commercial land uses, and then if you go across Gladstone Avenue, again, you have an entire row of residential land uses that have been anchored on Becker Avenue by Castle's Supermarket. So what you see here is you have a very large concentration of residential, a very large concentration of residential, and then a very, very short block in the city of Margate for the way that Margate is laid out. Has an existing commercial that's been there for a number of years.
And what is Barrels right now for the people who would not be familiar with it?
For the restaurant.
Barrels is a restaurant that was approved as a 28-seat restaurant, and it also has a very extensive takeout. I'm sure everybody's been there probably on this board and probably in this room.
Right.
It is a building that is one story in character, and it is a building that is a total square footage of 3,520 square feet. On the site, you can see in the aerial photo adjacent to the building, there is an existing 6-space off-street parking facility, which is for the benefit of the Barrels Restaurant, and that is also where their trash operation occurs in that parking area.
Proposal. What are we proposing to do with the site?
Okay, I would go to exhibit, this will be up to A3, correct, Brian?
Correct.
Okay. What we're proposing to do, and this is a color version of the application plan that was submitted, labeling exhibit A3. What we're proposing to do is to...
John, what's A2? I'm sorry.
A2 was an aerial photo of the site.
Okay.
And A1 was the architectural.
I have that.
Yeah, thank you. A3, as I mentioned, is a color version of the site subdivision plan that was submitted. And the proposal was to demolish all the existing site improvements, including the building and the parking facility, to subdivide the parcel into 2 equally sized lots. The dimensions of those lots are such that the overall width of the property is 84 feet, the overall depth is 80 feet. The proposal was to cut that in half and develop 2 properties, each having a width of 42 feet, each having a depth of 80 feet, and each having a total square foot area of 3,360 square feet. To be built upon those properties are 2-story, single-family, detached residential homes. They are, as you can see from Mr. Weiss's plan, they are laid out as 4-bedroom homes with a study that is essentially an optional 5th bedroom. The site improvements that go along with that proposal are 3 off-street parking spaces for each of the units, because in order to allow that 5th bedroom to occur, if a potential buyer chooses to do that, the 3rd parking space is required. So there are 3 proposed. The development itself, obviously, as Mr. Rubin's report points out, is is not a permitted use in the zone. So the key element here that we're here before you this evening is with regard to a use variance, a D1 use variance because of the use. But if you look at the development itself, insofar as the setbacks and the coverage and all the things associated with the residential use that we propose, it is in conformity with all the residential zones with regard to setback, coverage, landscaping, and the other elements that go along with a single-family residential home. Now, as I get further into my use variance testimony, you'll hear me describe those setbacks and why we think those issues help to promote the positive criteria of this application.
And let's talk about that, because with respect to a use variance, we're really looking at three overall criteria. The issues are special reasons, which talk about the positive criteria. You have a negative criteria, and when you have something that's not, quote, an inherently beneficial use, you have the Medici criteria, which means that we have to show that the site's particularly well-suited for what we're intending to do. So, in a sense, talking about the special reasons, let's go to the positive. Why do you think that 2 single-family homes would be a better fit on this site than a restaurant takeout facility?
Okay, I'm going to go putting up Exhibit A4.
A4.
Which is a justification chart analysis for the use variance testimony. Okay. When we started studying this, as far as what the application, what Mr. Taddy and the owner of Barrels was proposing, we started studying was looking at really does it work for the location? You know, are there justifications? Are there real justifications that meet the criteria of the municipal land use law in order to basically convert a commercial property into a residential property? That's what we're here for this evening. And we found something interesting with this application, and that is typically when we look at use variance testimony, there are about a dozen or so. I think it was a 10 in total.
Yeah. Criteria.
Criteria or special reasons that can exist on an application, and in order to promote the special reasons or the positive criteria to support a use variance. Typically, in an application, we have 1 or 2 that are appropriate and can be justified. When we started looking at this, what we realized is pretty unusual from a planning perspective. In my opinion, we actually have 6 specific special reasons that are applicable to this application and really have true justifications to help advance the positive criteria of this use variance. And that's highly unusual for many of the use variance applications that we have. And I'm going to go through them. This is kind of worded testimony, but it's important, obviously, the justification of our case. I'm going to go through them as quickly as I can, but as slowly as I need to for a stenographer, and why I believe each one of them are justified and advance the purposes of zoning in this application. I'm going to start with one that we're all very familiar with right now, and that is to secure safety from fire, flood, panic, and other natural and man-made disasters. Currently situated on the property, as I mentioned, a 3,500 square foot building. It has a finished floor elevation of 7.8 feet. That's in the old Home 29 data, NGVD 29 data. And this building had, in my estimation, approximately a foot of water within it as a result of the storm based on that elevation. That's an issue for the town. That's an issue for many, many properties in this town at this time. What we propose to do as part of this application is to build 2 structures on the property, which will both conform entirely to the new FEMA requirement, the new advisory map elevations that have been adopted, and to all of the flood requirements that are currently enacted and in place in the city of Margate. So, because we are eliminating a structure that's non-conforming with regard to the FEMA requirement, then we are proposing structures that are fully conforming. For that reason, that purpose of the zoning is advanced as part of this application.
Mr. Barnhart, very quickly on that. Is there any way to bring the current barrels into conformity?
No, the building is essentially a slab-on-grade construction. There is really no viable way to elevate it. And the interesting thing about a property like that is it's a 3,500 square foot building that goes property line to property line from Gladstone to Granville Avenue. If you did elevate that, in order to meet accessibility requirements for handicap and other things, you'd have a ramp that would be in excess of 70 feet long. It would be a very, very different, a very, very hard obstacle to overcome in order to make that building comply.
Go ahead, move on with the other justifications.
We believe that purpose of zoning is they continue on, provision to provide adequate air, light, and open space on the property. We have a CBD zone, commercial zoning district, which permits 0 front yard setbacks, it permits 0 side yard setbacks, and it permits building coverages of up to 60%. What we propose is to have very large front yard setbacks in excess of 20 feet on Gladstone, 5-foot front yard setbacks on Granville, staggering side yard setbacks that are either 11.8 or 5.3, a building coverage that is less than 40%, it's about 36%, and a total landscape area or impervious area on the property that is almost 40%. So we are taking a building which goes almost line to line, eliminating it. We are taking a building which is only a couple of feet from the adjacent structure on lot 1. We are eliminating that and moving it almost 12 feet away from that adjacent structure. We are providing an ample landscape package on the property. We are reducing impervious coverage by almost 40% on the property, and we are providing more air, light, and open space on this property than I think near almost every property in the CBD zone, but for the openness of the drive-through of the bank next to us. So for all of those reasons, we believe that purpose of zoning is clearly advanced in provisions for providing adequate air, light, and open space. The next element is to promote the establishment of appropriate population densities to contribute to the well-being of neighborhoods. That's an interesting one here. It actually ties to my last purpose of zoning about promotion of general welfare. We are proposing to take a rather intense site. It's a commercial use, it's a restaurant use. Restaurants are one of the more intense commercial uses there are out there in land use because of the nature of the operation. We're proposing to eliminate that in a location that has dense residential on both sides of it. Across Gladstone Avenue, across Granville Avenue. I'll go back just for a quick second to Exhibit A2. As I said, across Gladstone Avenue, all across Granville Avenue, we're proposing to eliminate that intense land use and reduce the intensity or the density of the land use on that property by building 2 single-family homes, which is a more appropriate density population when you look at the surrounding land uses than what currently exists on the property.
In fact, as the last application also discussed, the removal of barrels in a residential neighborhood, the issues of trash, the issues of smells, the issues of deliveries, the issues of employee parking, all of those potential issues of having a CBD location in the middle of a highly residential neighborhood, those issues also go away.
That is correct, and that kind of ties into the last 2 purposes of zoning that we believe are advanced here. The second to last one that I'm promoting this evening is to promote a desirable visual environment. I skipped one. To encourage the location design of transportation routes to promote the free flow of traffic. We looked at this site from 2 aspects. 1, parking, and 2, traffic, because they are 2 basically separate and independent things. If you look at this building as a 3,500 square foot commercial building, which is a permitted use in the zone, if you were to apply your land use standards for parking requirements, the building was permitted or was approved that it's at 28 seats per restaurant and a takeout area. The takeout area, by my analysis, is approximately 240 square feet. So if you apply the 28-seat restaurant and you apply the requirements for takeout, similar to the application that I just did earlier this evening, that parking generation, as per your ordinance, is 16 parking spaces. The site currently has 6 parking spaces. If you forget about barrels for a second and you put just any general retail commercial operation in the facility on a 3,500 square foot building, that has a parking generation of 17 spaces and change. Again, what can actually handle on this site being 6 spaces, both the existing condition of a restaurant and almost any proposed permitted use that would go into that facility based on that building size would be well deficient in what this site can actually accommodate with regard to parking. Our project, completely will conform to the parking requirements. Our project is proposing 2 single-family homes. They have a 4-bedroom home with an option of a 5th bedroom. They have 3 parking spaces per house. We conform entirely with regard to parking. Look at it from a traffic standpoint for a second. What we did is we looked at the Institute of Transportation Engineers published manuals on trip generation, which basically is it's a nationwide thing on a location-by-location basis. Obviously, the averages change a little bit, but I just want to give you some order of magnitude of what we're talking about here with regard to traffic. When you look at a commercial building like this as a sit-down restaurant, the ITE manual, which is what it's understood as, looks at a sit-down restaurant of 3,500 square feet to generate on a daily basis in excess of 400 traffic trips going and coming from the site. Over 400 trips for a 3,500 square foot restaurant of this character. 2 single-family houses, based on that same ITE manual, actually generates 20 trips per day. If you take this land use at a 3,500 square foot building and you forget about the averages of, okay, it could be a much more intense use of being a 3,500 square foot restaurant, and you apply the 28-seat parking space, or a 28-seat restaurant that was permitted, and ignore the takeout even. The ITE manual says this project will generate 138 trips per day. Again, the residential use that we propose is based on the ITE criteria is 20 trips per day. So why am I going through all this? Our proposal is to reduce the intensity of parking to reduce the impact of parking in the area by bringing a site entirely into conformity with regard to parking, to reduce the intensity of traffic at this location, which I'm sure everybody in this room and on this board is very familiar with the congestion in this area, specifically during the summer months. And for both of those reasons, we believe that the special reason of promotion of free flow of traffic is clearly advanced in this application. I'm going to skip down to the last one, which is to encourage municipal action for the appropriate use of land to promote the general welfare of the community. In my opinion as a planner, that's the key to this whole application. This application, in my opinion, promotes the general welfare of this community. So how does it do that? And Brian started to talk about that. We are taking a commercial use that's in a location that is pretty difficult for its surrounding residential land use, which is similar to what Mr. Santori was talking about in the prior application. We're taking that, we're proposing to take that away. What does that do for the surrounding residential land uses? It eliminates the congestion that I just talked about with regard to traffic and parking. It eliminates the issues with regard to smell and noise and the trash trucks that we talked about. It eliminates, it eliminates the potential for employees that are parking on the street and taking up on-street parking spaces. As we know, Barrows has a number of employees, specifically in the summer months. They're parking somewhere. Obviously, they're not parking in the 6-space parking lot. So it reduces that as an issue and a burden on that surrounding residential neighborhood. So all of those elements clearly go to promote the general welfare of the public if this application is permitted. So where do we have to go from there?
Second criteria, then, when we take a look at this, you have the Medici criteria, which says, is this use particularly well suited? And we're talking about sometimes, when you take a look at your zoning boundaries for your CBD, we're looking at the uniqueness of those zoning boundaries, and I think Mr. Barnhart will explain a little bit on the concept between side streets with commercial on side streets versus your arterial roads, your Ventnors and your Atlantics. So would you talk a little bit about why you believe that this use is particularly well suited, given the fact of the commercial use being there right now?
Yes, absolutely. So we're up to exhibit A5, is that correct?
A5.
Exhibit A5 is a blown-up plan with the site identified of the zoning map. It's entitled zoning map exhibit. This is the site outlined in red, the center of the exhibit. What see, which I will outline with my pen, you can see the boundary of the CBD zone, which goes along the backs of, and let me orient you, I'm sorry, real quickly. This being Ventnor Avenue, this being Atlantic Avenue. The CBD zone runs from the center line of Granville Avenue and incorporates the frontages of all the properties essentially on both sides of Ventnor Avenue down to Douglas Avenue. It then heads up to Atlantic Avenue, and it comes back heading toward our site or toward Granville Avenue. But then it actually jumps out and creates a residential zone smack in the middle of the CBD zone box. What that does is it creates a mass of CBD zoning from Atlantic Avenue along Essex to Ventnor Avenue, CBD zoning down Ventnor Avenue, for all the Ventnor Avenue frontages. But then it actually projects for just our one block over to Atlantic Avenue and creates that as commercial development. It's my opinion that was basically done because that's what existed. They were commercial uses. That block, because it was a short block, it already existed as commercial uses, and there really aren't that many properties on the block. They surrounded that property, incorporated the CBD zone. They become permitted uses in the zone, and they can continue to occupy. They can continue to renovate, expand, or as they see fit. But what it doesn't do, as a matter of good zoning, is it really doesn't take into account how your lands are developed on either side of it. It shot a spur of your CBD zone right through the middle of two residential zones. You have an expanse of an S25 zone coming all the way down from Ventnor Avenue to Atlantic Avenue, coming all the way down to this site. You then stop for our block, just for that commercial zoning, and then you pick up again a very large mass of what is considered two-family zoning, which is again residential zoning. So you have residential, one quick spur interruption of commercial, and then back to residential again. So why is that matter here? Well, we're talking about particularly suitedness of a site for proposed use. We are 100% on either side of us for a number of blocks residential. We are a site that, in my opinion, being a mid-block site, if it would make it, would have likely been zoned residential at some time a number of years ago. But because of the way this thing has been developed and has stayed developed for many years, I believe that the city fathers chose to create it as a commercial zone or add it to the CBD zone because of its existence. This location is unique and particularly well suited for a residential development because it is bordered by two relatively narrow side streets, residential in character, 50-foot wide rights-of-way. If you look at some of the other side streets that do fall within the CBD zone, as an example, Essex Avenue, as another example, Franklin Avenue, I'm sorry, not Franklin, Frontenac Avenue, they are wide rights-of-way. So you have areas of the CBD zone that do come into the side street, but they are on much larger corridors, there's much more openness, there's much more ability to flow traffic through those areas. So we believe that this site is very peculiar and very particularly well suited for two residential homes because of how the zoning lays out and because of what surrounds this property.
Third criteria talks about negative criteria, and there's really two prongs to the negative criteria. Is there going to be substantial detriment to the public good, and is there going to be substantial detriment to the zone plan and zoning ordinance? Let's talk about the first criteria. In your opinion, converting this from commercial to residential, will that create substantial detriment to the public good?
No, and it goes to all the special reasons that I've already put in the record, but I'm going back to Exhibit A4 for a moment. As you said, the criteria is without substantial detriment to the public good. We're improving traffic flow. We are improving parking. We are improving air, light, and open space on this property. We're improving drainage. We're improving impervious coverage. We're improving aesthetics. We are going to be compliant with all the current FEMA requirements, which is a large element in today's times. For all those reasons, we believe that there's no negative associated with the public good. There are really only positives that feel for the public in this application.
Second prong is there substantial impairment to the zone plan or zoning ordinance?
No, there is not. A couple things I want to go back on is I explained the unique shape of the zoning district here, the CBD zone, and how this is one of the only blocks that the mid-block piece of property that is on a side street is commercially zoned. The majority of them are all residentially zoned and developed as residential. We are in close proximity to a number of residential uses, as I mentioned, and I think the one key element to finish on here is that the use that we're here asking for a use variance on, a residential, single-family residential property, is not a use that's not permitted in the CBD zone. Residential is in fact permitted in the CBD zone. It's just not permitted to be on the ground floor. That's the only distinction between what we propose here and what your land use ordinance. If you put a little office downstairs, the residential above is permitted. If you put a little store downstairs, the residential above is permitted. But because we want to have residential downstairs, which is in much greater character with what's on either side of us, across the street, across Gladstone and across Granville, it becomes a use variance. We think we've put forth a litany of issues that make this better for the community, make this better for the neighbors. We're proposing a use that is permitted in the zone. We just would like to also do it on the ground floor. And I want to also finish with the way that the subdivision lays out and the areas of the lot and those.
That's what I was just going to ask is we have a C variances that we're also required to receive. And would you talk a little bit about the C variances and why we think that they can be granted?
Sure. Mr. Rubin's report points out the requirement for a lot area variance, the requirement for a lot width variance, and then also the requirement for a landscape variance. What I would like to explain with regard to the lot area and lot width variance.
Let's just mark that A6.
I'm sorry, A6. Yeah, you're right. I have a couple of things. Yeah. This is a copy of your tax map blown up, and what I want you to take a look at here with regard to the lot area and the lot width variances is that by commercial zoning, by CBD zoning, you're required to have a 4,000 square foot lot. By the residential zoning that surrounds this property, you're required to have something much less. The property immediately, the zone immediately across Granville Avenue, which is the S25 zone, requires a 2,500 square foot lot. The two-family zone, which is immediately across Gladstone Avenue from this property, I just want to make sure I give you the correct number.
3,200.
Yeah, requires a 3,200 square foot lot. Each of the lots that we propose are 3,360 square feet. So the CBD zoning criteria for a commercial building is a 4,000 square foot lot. But the lots that we are proposing to create are well in excess of your typical residential lot, specifically in this neighborhood, and meeting the criteria of the two adjacent zones. So we're proposing residential homes on two lots that are of adequate size. It's just that because we're in a CBD zone and we are not conforming to, and we're not proposing a commercial land use, we still have to meet the criteria of a 4,000 square foot lot being in the CBD zone. That same justification holds for the lot width. The lot width requirement is, the lot width as proposed is 42 feet. That lot width meets both of the adjacent residential zoning requirements. It meets the S25, it meets the TF. It does not meet the CBD, but again, we're not proposing a commercial application here. We're proposing a residential application. So the 42-foot lot that's 3,360 square feet in either of the adjacent zones would be fully conforming. The setbacks that we propose with regard to this application would be fully conforming. If the zoning were, if the mid-block zoning of this was residential like it is across the street, right here, right here, right here, as you go right down this block, we would be a fully conforming two-lot subdivision. The last variance is with regard to landscaping. And maybe Mr. Rubin can correct me on this. In the CBD zone, the landscaping requirement is still...
There is none.
Right, so I guess the question is that technically a variance here?
Yeah, you put that in as a, with reference to the residential. Technically, it's not a variance, you're right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the discussion is because we are in a commercial zone, there is technically no landscape requirement. So the fact that we don't meet the front yard landscaping element is not a variance because we're in the CBD zone.
And let me go over that, because I see Mr. Well, no, there's,
Use the C zone, because it's a C zone, you have enough space, you use the C zone, the benefit, this is CBD zone, the benefit, they would take it away when it hurts you.
no, we,
All right, well, let me, let's assume for a second though, I mean, I understand what you're saying. Let's assume for a second that it is still a variance, because let me explain it to you. Assuming that we are in the residential zone and we need to look at the landscaping requirements, okay? As you know, Mr. Patterson, the requirement for overall lot landscaping is 35%. These lots, as proposed, will be a total lot landscaping of 39.3%. So they're well in excess of what the requirement is. The issue with regard to front yard landscaping is that because we have driveways proposed coming off of Gladstone Avenue that are 2 cars wide, the front yard landscape along Gladstone Avenue was only, I say only, it's 46% where 60 is required. But the front yard landscape requirement on Granville Avenue, where 60 would be required, is 89%. So I agree with you. You're kind of mixing and matching there, but assuming that I would need to justify the variance, in my opinion, it's clearly justified. We have a front yard setback here of 20 feet. The majority of that is all landscape. We are conforming on the other street. We happen to have 2 frontages here. And the actual front of our home, which is on Granville Avenue, does meet the front yard landscape requirement.
and I mean, that was one of the reasons we put it on the plan to begin with, to show the board that from our perspective, we were attempting to justify it based on the surrounding residential requirements, because the commercial district said 0.
And my point was that he should have justified it like he just did,
Yes.
rather than just blowing it off as
Yep.
Fair point.
I don't have any other questions of Mr. Barnhart. I would open up to the board.
How much of these houses will it cost?
Well, Mr. Taddy, stand up, come on up so they can hear you. Up to the microphone. They would actually range from, I'm sorry, can you hear me? They would actually range from 1 million to 1.3.
1 million to what?
1.3 million.
I have a question for John. What is the opening for the driveways?
Driveway openings are proposed at 20 feet.
Okay, but according to the plans, I don't see where the two cars are. I see a double driveway, but I don't see enough space for the second car, for the third parking space.
As proposed, you'd have 2 cars stacked side by side along the property line.
Yeah.
And then there'll be 1 car next to that. So you've got a driveway that's essentially 20 feet wide. They could have 2 cars side by side. And then there's 2 wheel strips that come along the side of the house that give you the space for the 3rd car.
I don't see the 20 feet, according to this plan I'm looking at.
Take a look at this exhibit for 1 second. From that property line to that edge of the concrete driveway
Yeah?
is 20 feet.
Okay, if you say so, I don't see it on the plans.
And then it's 20.4 feet in front of the house. That gives you 2 spaces side by side right
I
there.
understand that.
Does that
I
exhibit
don't see the 20 feet.
reflect the same as your submission at your plans dated October 4th, 2012?
That's what I'm saying.
Just want to make sure.
Right. John, I don't see you have 20 feet for those 2 parking spots.
Let's say, it's up at the top, you have a 20-foot curb cut.
Right.
And you extend that curb line down, it runs into the stairs and the open.
Well, I see what you're saying. The radius for the cut is a little wider. I understand what you're saying on that. Okay. Well, I can tell you this, the requirement is actually 2.9, so it's 18.
Be 18 feet, right?
But yeah, you pointed something out there that
but I don't see the well, I don't see 18 really, according to this.
That's it.
I mean, my testimony is we will have 2 legal parking spaces here and here.
I don't see it on the plan today.
Any other questions of Mr. Barnhart? I have Mrs. Qualtieri.
Your client's proposing to demolish the restaurant and develop the property into 2 single-family homes.
Correct.
Like, can you hear the mic? I can't hear.
I can't either.
I said his client is proposing to demolish the restaurant, put up 2 single-family homes. Any consideration given to develop property after the demolition in a manner that conforms to the zoning ordinance?
Well, to conform to the zoning ordinance would require commercial on the ground floor with residential above.
Correct.
One of the
Why
problems,
not?
well, one of the problems that we faced, is, or at least we contemplated, was that the development of any type of a commercial space there with apartments above, you would probably be insufficient on parking. As we stand right now, we would require, without contemplating any employees, 16 parking spaces for the existing property, and we have 6. So we're 10 spaces short on the existing proposal as Barrel stands right now, and that does not count employees where they park, because needless to say, we don't have them park in the parking spaces for the public. So some of them get there by bus, but some are parking there. Rose parks there, Chris parks there. So you have people parking on the street right now. Employees during the wintertime, you generally have 6, 7 employees. During the summertime, you probably have 12 employees.
All these comparisons you're making, though, and all the ones that John did, were comparing 2 houses to Barrel's restaurant. Why not compare them to what could legally be put there?
Well, and that's what we're saying. To put something legally there would require variance relief. I can't envision you putting a commercial project on that site, an 8,400 square foot site, a commercial project that would be able to meet any type of a parking requirement and generate in the sense of, could someone buy it and then build something new that would generate a cash flow to pay for that and still not have to come in here and ask for variances, even if he's putting some type of residential above it. So even if he builds a 3,000 square foot building downstairs and puts 2 residences upstairs, his parking requirement is going to be much greater than he could ever put on the property.
But that kind of variance would be much more reasonable to ask for than something this extreme.
Well, see, and I guess that's where we disagreed, because we thought that, and we haven't opened to the public, but we thought that eliminating the parking and the traffic on a side narrow street that's only a one-way street was a greater benefit to the community than leaving a commercial project in the middle of a block.
I don't think you're eliminating John's 400 trips a day.
Well,
because if they existed, Barrels wouldn't give up that restaurant for anything.
And I agree, but we're certainly much greater than 20 trips per day that the 2 residences would generate. So we're, no matter how you count them, between the takeout and the restaurant, we're much greater than 20 trips per day. And if you look at it, not knowing whether it's, and that's 20 trips per day, assuming that you have 2 end users who are going to be there full-time, year-round, versus there may be people who buy them as, quote, summer houses and still use them, but those 20 trips would not be being generated as a year-round basis. So that's what we were looking at. I think, with John's testimony, you're on a side street with low visibility on a one-way street surrounded by residential, not on an arterial street where you have Ventnor or Atlantic. So I think that was the real issue, from a parking point of view, from a smell point of view, from a trash point of view, from an employee point of view, that this was a better concept for your neighbors than leaving it. Even from going to the technical, from a fire and flood point of view, it was a better concept.
Again, you're comparing it to the restaurant.
Well, that's what's existing there now. So, I mean, you know, it's hard to imagine someone who's going to buy the building of an existing restaurant, gut it and turn it into something else, and whatever it is, 3,500 square feet, still generates a deficit from a parking point of view.
But not, if they knocked it down, they wouldn't have a 3,500 square foot building. You keep going back to comparing it to what's there.
Well,
but you're proposing removing what's there.
Well, it's hard to imagine in today's economy that anyone would purchase the property on a side street going one way with no visibility to knock it down and build a new commercial project that wouldn't have adequate parking for it. Whatever they are, whether they're a law office and anything else, that you're not going to have adequate space to put in for your own employees to park winter and summer. And that you're not going to be able to have residences upstairs parked to generate a cash flow for doing it also. I mean, could it happen? I guess, but I mean, I think that's, in today's economy, not a viable plan.
I respectfully disagree.
Okay. Once again, any other questions, Mr. Barnhart, Mr. Weiss, Mrs. Qualtieri, or Mr. Taddy?
Okay, no other questions, so we're going to open it up to the public now. Anybody from the public have any comments, questions?
My name is Joe Tozy, 7 South Granville Avenue. My name?
Yeah.
Joseph Tozy, 7 South Granville. I do. Well, I had an agenda here to talk about, but they're talking about this here, before I get into my little agenda, they're talking about the parking issue and it's going to eliminate this. Let's face it, you got the library up the street and you have all the stores on Ventnor Avenue, you have all the offices on Granville Avenue. Nothing's going to solve that problem. I've been there for 45 years and we haven't been able to figure it out. Putting 2 houses there isn't going to solve the problem. Now, with that being said, I'd like to bring back, in my memories, somewhere about 8 or 10 years ago, we had brought in a firm to go over the master plan and to go over the building codes. And I believe the one major thing they all agreed on was that the first floor in a CBD district should remain commercial. Okay? Now, one more important thing that I want to bring to your attention is that over the years, we've lost a lot of commercial property in this town. And if we continue to do that, this town's just going to dry up. Everybody will be going offshore. A lot of people are going offshore to go shopping, whatever may be the case. So you want to keep that in your mind. And that's my first reason for this application to not be approved. The second thing is, the application is proposing to build 2 houses on a non-permitted CBD district again, and they're needing 4,000 square feet per house. They have 3,360 feet. They're like 1,300 feet short. Plus, the width variance, they're 8 feet short there. Then they need a shed variance, you know. Pretty much, they're asking this here board to just change all the rules to do this. And again, that's the second reason why this here application should not be approved. Now, if you go down to Atlantic Avenue and you stand alongside of Wells Fargo Bank and you look down to Ventnor, you pretty much see a uniform block. Now, you're telling me by putting 2 houses right in the middle of the block, you're going to make this block look uniform. Well, I disagree. Okay? And like I say, pretty much I don't want to stay here all night and talk. He did a very nice job doing his presentation, but my final sum up on this here, I expect all you board members to vote against this because this is a CBD district. If we start now with this district, where are we going to go with the rest? And I thank you very much.
Hold on, she's the applicant, so you can call her if you want, but not as public.
Rose, I'll call you at the end.
Thank you. Come on, sir.
Joseph Aponic, APO NIK, 9 South Gladstone.
Raise your right hand. Do you swear the testimony about this matter will be truthful and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do. I came just to observe what was going on since I live right across the street from Barrels. Just so you understand the residential area, there are 5 duplexes on Gladstone. Every one of them has at least one full-time residence on the floor, if not both floors. I live on the first floor. Ms. Cohen lives on the second floor. I have the pleasure of being the front of my house right across from the loading zone. So in the spring, in the summer, and the fall, I get to have tractor trailers, primarily for Castle Supermarket, leaving their engines run for a half hour while they make their delivery, forcing me to close my door and windows so that I can talk to my wife inside my house. Would we like all the residents that I know on that street, would we like 2 residential buildings? The answer is definitely yes. Thank you.
Have your full name, please.
Full name is Robert Hammerschlag.
Spell your last name
Hammerschlag.
and home address, please.
My home address, 215 Mallard Lane, West Atlantic City.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so
I
help you
do.
God?
I think most of the people in this room know that I'm in business in this town and have been in business for 30 years. And business is just shrinking and shrinking and shrinking. It's getting very, very difficult to survive in this town. I understand what's going on with Barrels. I understand from a financial point of view that it's very difficult for them to make it today. But what I'm really nervous about is all the other people that are going to be still here, myself included. And I just think that we should not be reducing the central business district at all. Some way or somehow they need to come up with a different plan so we have something there that is commercial, because we're just losing too much commercial space. And we're just turning this town into nothing but a second residence town. And when we do that, it makes it very difficult for all the businesses to survive. We need some more businesses here, we need some more drawers, and I just don't think this is a good proposal at all. Not for the future of Margate. Thank you.
Anyone else from the public? Okay, public portion is closed.
I'd like to just have Rose Gualtieri give you a little background on what's going on with our business. Rose, go ahead.
Well, what that gentleman just said is true, but we do not want to leave Margate. I just want to get a smaller place. The overhead is just too high with the place that I have now, especially with the economy changing and everything that's been happening. Winters are tough.
Could you pull the microphone down, please?
Sure. And I really want to stay in Margate. So I just want to get a small takeout place in Margate. We'll have the same foods, we'll have everything the same as we have right now, but just that the overhead has been really hard for us. So it would be easier for us, and everybody's going to miss our soups if we don't stay here. So we are staying, but we just cannot keep up with this 2-building with the overhead. It's just too much for us. That's all I really have to say, and I really hope we get approved. Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, public portion is closed. Do I get a motion to approve?
Let me,
Oh, yeah.
if I may. Mr. Callen, I just have a couple of questions. Can you summarize to me, I understand the C variances, and I would think the board does, but as to the D variances, what criteria are you asking for? Meaning, I'm assuming you're not asking to make that it's an inherently beneficial use.
No, I think that,
The third prong is what we're asking for, just to be clear?
I think under the D1 standards, that we need to show special reasons, and I think
No, and I understand that. What I'm saying is, there's three reasons. One is inherently beneficial use, right, which you're not asking.
Right.
Second one is if the applicant's going to suffer a hardship. Is that one of your arguments?
no, hardship would be under the C variance. Under special reasons, positive and negative criteria would be the standards set forth under NJSA 40:55B2, and those standards set forth under the municipal land use law. And those justifications.
And the third that I have, and I know maybe we have a discrepancy on what we think the standards are, but and Mr. Barnard addressed this, and I'm taking it that he's stating that the use that you're proposing would serve the general welfare because the proposed site is particularly suitable for the proposed use. That's the criteria, correct?
Stan, we can't hear you over here.
That is one of the criteria. That we have to be able to establish that it's particularly well suited for the area and that it meets both the positive and the negative criteria.
Okay, so which one are we speaking about, just so the board
I think we have to show all three. I think we have to establish, that's why I think Mr. Barnhart went over the testimony, that it is particularly well suited, and then prove the positive reasons, the safety from fire, the adequate light, the design transportation routes, the desirable visual environment, and appropriate use of the land, and from the negative criteria, that there would be really no substantial detriment to the public good. Once again, that's, in our opinion.
I understand the negative criteria. I think the board does also.
So I think the
When I'm-
positive is set forth, and then the particularly well suited is, once again, I think, Mr. Barnhart indicated in his testimony, we're talking about its location, we're talking about its zoning boundaries, the width of the street, the fact that you're surrounded by S25 and TF zones on the 2 or 3 blocks completely surrounded. Mr. Malponic said, as part of the public, these directly across the street, that's all TF zone, that's all S25 zone. So this part of CBD has been just cut out of this particular street. I think that's why this is a particularly well suited for this particular lot. Would it fit on Essex Avenue, which is a wide street? Probably not. Would it fit on Ventnor Avenue where you have castles? Probably not. Would it fit up on Atlantic Avenue on Marshall? Probably not. So this is a pretty unique spot when you look at how Barrels is located in conjunction with the other surrounding residential uses on both sides of the street, in the middle of the street. So the question becomes, can that use be justified without substantial detriment to the public good, without substantially impairing? And that's a key word. When I heard Mr. Hammerschlag talk about it, Mr. Tozy, well, we're losing, we may be losing. But you also have to look at what are the benefits. In this case, we have a Margate Burger that just came in. That building had been vacant for 3 years. We have a person who's suffering right now, Rose Paultier, with Barrels and trying to meet overhead. Doesn't mean she's going to go out of Margate, she's going to relocate. But why is she suffering? Well, because you're on a side street, you have only one way, you have visibility, you're surrounded by neighbors who park on both sides of the street. You only have 6 parking spaces, which you're, between employees and everything else, you're overwhelmed with. So there's all of those factors that go into it of what better location to make a change. It's not on Atlantic Avenue, it's not on Ventnor Avenue. And I think that we've established all the criteria from a legal criteria, particularly well suited, special reasons, and the negative criteria. Thank you.
Anybody else, any other questions, comments? Okay.
Let me just give some instructions to the board, if I may. We've heard Roger talk about the criteria that he feels are necessary, and I agree with him, and that's part of his report. The relief that's being requested tonight that I think is the most difficult to describe would be the D variance. And the D variant, I'm trying to talk as loud as I can, is the D variance. The applicant has to show special reasons for the D variance, and that's defined at NJSA 40:5570D 1 and 2. Special reasons are 1, it's inherently beneficial use; 2, where the property owner will suffer undue hardship; or 3, which I think the applicant is focusing on, is where the use would serve the general welfare because the proposed site is particularly suitable for the proposed use. That's the part of the criteria. The other criteria are the negative criteria. The applicant must also show that a variance or other relief can be granted without substantial detriment to the public good, and it will not substantially impair the intent and purposes of the zone plan and zoning ordinance. You've heard the applicant's testimony. You've heard his experts testify, and that's the criteria for a D variance. The C variances that are requested are from lot area. 4,000 square feet is required, 3,360 feet proposed. The lot width, 50 feet is required, 42 feet is proposed, and the front landscape area, 60% required on Granville, and 46% is provided. So there'll be two particular, let's separate out the votes for a D variance first, and then as to the C variances second. And also, it's also, thank you. It's also for a minor subdivision with variances, C variances that I described. So the motion would be for, to approve a D variance, we'll vote on that separately, and then to approve a minor subdivision with the C variances as described.
I make a motion that we approve the application.
You're talking about the D variance?
The D variance, yes.
Is anyone second?
This is a vote for the D variance, so if we could take a
How
roll.
many? How many are voting for the D?
7 are voting.
Okay.
Mr. Humphries would be the 7th vote, I believe.
Adio Santori?
Wrote some of this down. Mine was going as the application was being presented. I'd love to accommodate the Gualtieri's, but to place two very large, expensive homes in a commercial block goes contrary to the intent of our zoning ordinance, and to approve the application would be just that. I would not vote for a commercial use in a residential zone. I'm not voting for a residential use in a commercial zone. I vote no.
Bill Gotchall?
I feel that D variance, the CBD zone is very limited in Margate, and I believe this would be setting a bad precedent for the CBD zone, especially since it is not on an end unit, it's actually behind the bank, so it's down the street, and be breaking up the CBD zone. I haven't heard anything that would change my mind on that. And over the past year, we've been watching our businesses come in here for applications and watching our CBD area actually grow. So I'm going to vote no on it.
Glenn Wozleski?
I don't think the testimony presented addressing either the positive or the negative criteria were adequate. To put two single-family homes in the middle of a commercial block as proposed, regardless of all the rhetoric, is just plain bad planning. I vote no.
Rich Patterson?
First, I'd like to commend John Molinaro for presenting a very good case report we had to work with. However, if I go through those special reasons and apply it to 60–70% of the commercial properties in town, we should turn them into residential too. To take this one piece in the middle of this block and make it residential, to me, is a foothold for the bank to go out of business and have a stronger case to make that end of the block residential. We have one business there that could create a lot of lots. For that reason, and the reasons cited by the previous members, I vote no.
Mike Cristaldi?
I think losing more business, we're just gonna keep on losing more businesses. And I think, as was stated before, we're actually starting to grow with the businesses. And I think we ought to back them, and Backman would be voting no for this. So my answer is no.
Ned Humphreys?
Well, I'm going to make it unanimous. I do like to recommend or congratulate John on doing a nice presentation, but it's just the wrong thing in the wrong space. So I vote no.
Mike Richmond?
Like someone, I think Audio brought it up when we, when we changed the master plan, or actually maybe it was Tozy, 8 years ago, we really talked about preserving the business community in Margate, and I'm a firm believer in that. I'll bend over backwards for businesses, so I'm going to vote no too.
0 yeses, 7 noes.
Thank you very much.
I think we're going to vote for the C variances also. 'Cause
What's this C
Well, you wouldn't need it.
Why?
We can't do a minor subdivision with any variances. So it's a moot point.
Done deal.
5 minutes. Shoot, 5 minutes.
Okay, we're going to take a 5-minute break before the last case.
If they appeal it, have a D variance. If they appeal it, have a D variance. We can vote on the C.
Careful. Work on it. I've done it.
Say what? Oh, really?
And even though we're friendly,
You have to ask for another variance. Somebody's pulling it I'll show you. You can ride it there. Catch this one.
Yeah. Late one tonight.
Feel better. Take care. Feel better, Rich.
Here they're saying they can do it, here they're saying you can't.
I think this is like my 7th
We give them a January. This is wrong, this ain't in 08. And we were thinking Ventnor Avenue.
One vendor, 2 security office. And then, you know, and then EHC sign applications. So then my kids are
It's right in. On Grand Lab, right next door.
Yeah, but that meeting we had, I mean, I'm glad Morgan's being very proactive.
That was good.
Yeah, it was good.
That actually did it. Different format kind of.
As soon as that was ready,
There we go.
I wasn't there, but I heard it was good. They had some stations. It was more like a, right, rather than a
building a nice house or something. People are panicking.
Right. And when I look at the map, I think half of my property is in the Beasley.
Really?
Half is in the east.
See, that doesn't make sense. It's weird, isn't it?
But,
So
I
you're
mean, it
around
could-
Andy Mack Street?
Yeah, Andy's the next block.
Okay.
He's on Surrey.
Right.
And then Winchester, and I'm on Suffolk, and I'm in the second house.
Now, are you ready to motion back? Yeah.
It's some high ground.
Is it? Oh, yeah, you're right.
I mean, there was never a drop in that water in that basement.
Really?
It's a flood, 4 feet.
I realized that. I was around next door on the other side. You know, it's normally down the road. I guess
Say, hey, how you doing? I'm good. Since Maynard's in the summer. Since Maynard's in the summer. Absolutely. It's a great time. Isogenics. That's what takes so long. It is through the internet because they don't sell it in stores. A lot of good results. Yeah, like your health coaching thing. So it works. I haven't tried it. No, my son's trying it. I think he might want to sell it on his own. No, I believe it. It's a free game.
It's plenty of room. So
Okay, we're going to get going.
Yeah, join. Yes. Yeah, so that, yeah, I still had to ask you some of that. What's your gas?
Yeah, I know. We're going to. Okay, here we go. Everybody want to take a seat? Okay, our last case of the night is Designer's Choice Custom Homes LLC, 7405 Atlantic Avenue, Block 101.01, Lot 12 in the S25 District to grant a C variance for a fence setback for new single-family home on vacant land. Taxes are current and proof of advertising and notifying is satisfied.
Roger Rubin?
Further testimony rendered in this matter will be used in proof and other.
Yes. The subject property is vacant land at the northeast corner of Andover and Atlantic Avenues with frontage of 62.5 feet along Atlantic and 85 feet along Andover for a total lot area of 5,312 square feet. This parcel was approved as a by right subdivision in March of 2012, but subsequent litigation I wrote here has prevented construction of 2 homes. I was corrected by Mr. Callahan that litigation is not complete. There is ongoing litigation, let's put it that way. The applicant herein puts forth a single home predicated on reconsolidating the 2 lots into one, because they were actually subdivided, with the single home having 5 bedrooms and a 2.5-story configuration, with a proposed swimming pool as set forth in the submitted plan by Terry Cummings, architect. The plan shows a pool surround fence at 3 feet back from the front property line on lines on Atlantic and Andover Avenues, necessitating a variance. The variance is for pool fence location. Per the ordinance, the requirement is 10 feet from front property lines versus 3 feet as shown. Comments. As always, site inspections will determine if there are any negative impacts upon neighbors, the neighborhood in general, or the integrity of the zone plan. 2, the proposed fence and hedge line combination somewhat lines up with the fence hedge line of the neighbor's house at the corner of Atlantic and Fredericksburg Avenues, creating something of a continuous line. 3, fence height proposed is unclear. The fence height proposed is unclear, 5 or 6 feet, as well as the particular design of the proposed fence. Perhaps the applicant can present diagrams at the hearing. 4, shrub height outside and inside the proposed fence should be discussed as to whether the board desires it higher than the 18 inches plus described or not. 5, discussion as to pool equipment location would be helpful. And 6, if approved, evidence of lot consolidation should be submitted prior to plan execution.
Good evening, Brian Callahan of the law firm Callahan Thompson Thompson on behalf of Designer's Choice Custom Homes. Roger's report says it. We've been here long enough. Let me call Terry Cummings and have her sworn in, since we're not asking for a use variance for fences. Terry?
Right here. Just state your name. Terry Cummings.
Terry, just go briefly over your qualifications.
I am a New Jersey licensed architect and professional planner for 23 years.
We can stipulate.
You'll step, fine. Terry, why don't you, Mr. Bergman, we've marked the architectural plans as A1. Go ahead. Terry, why don't you walk the board through the proposed new dwelling, and then we'll talk a little bit about the variance.
We are proposing to build a new home here on this lovely lot that borders on Atlantic Avenue and Andover Avenue. Here, this is an oversized lot at 62.5 feet in this direction and 85 feet in this direction. The whole concept of the home was to be able to design a beautiful, spacious home for the family of 5 that would be occupying it, but to keep it back away from the traffic and noise of Atlantic Avenue, provide the view towards the beach, which they have from this home, and keep as much air, light, and green space as possible around the home. So we did that by squeezing the house over to the left side of the property. We have the parking here at the very left end of 3 cars, the home 2.5 stories, paving area around a relatively small pool, and then the landscaping. The lot size is required to be 2,500 square feet. We have 5,312 square feet to work with. I said the 62.5 by 85. The lot coverage is allowed to be 30%, and we chose only to cover 26% with the building. The front setback along Andover, our requirement is 5 feet. We've actually set the house back 11 feet. And along Atlantic, where our setback, another front yard is only 5 feet, we've actually set the house all the way back to 29 feet. And that's just the part that sticks out, the rest of it is further away. We have a 10-foot setback on the left side of the house, and we have chosen to make it 14 feet to give enough room for the cars and the swinging doors and keep the house from being too close to our neighbor on that side. And we have respected the 10 feet along the rear of the property line and have maintained that as well.
So let's talk a little bit about specifically the variance that we need. We're supposed to be 10 feet off the property line at Atlantic and Andover. We're proposing 3 feet. And talk a little bit about it from some of Mr. Rubin's comments were design, height, shrubs, etc.
The reason that we are requesting the variance is because we have 2 front lots, it is not allowing us to put the fence that most people would right on their property line. The requirement is 10 feet back. However, if we should put the fence that far back and then have 10 feet around the pool, which is already small and a minimum size, it just wouldn't be enough room. What we wanted to do, we're asking for a separate variance so that we can put the fence closer. And what we propose is a line of tall, thick, evergreen shrubs, providing total privacy to the people of the street. And on the other side of the fence, again, adding shrubs as well to give privacy for sound and the pool, so that there is no interchange between what happens in the yard and out there on the street. So the public has privacy and the people using the yard has privacy.
And along Atlantic Avenue, the proposed fence and shrubbery will match up with Dr. Previty going down toward Fredericksburg Avenue. He already has existing shrubs along that outside boundary. And design of the fence? Have you talked with Mr. Berman, the owner, as to what?
Right, right now, a decision hasn't been made, but we were talking about a black wrought iron fence. The whole project really is going to be first-class construction, and there isn't going to be anything that would not be good quality. So wrought iron fence has been talked about, or some other kind of total privacy fence. It would be 6 foot tall to surround the pool. And let me point out also, one of the questions was, we have taken great pains to keep as much yard space as possible. The pool equipment itself, you don't see it in this site plan because it's actually hidden down here in the first floor of the house, as well as the air conditioning units are down here on the first floor. And I can show you the floor plans if you'd like to see how that was done. In order not to use up any of the yard space, there's 1,366 square feet of the first floor, includes all that space.
And by hiding the air conditioner units and by hiding the pool equipment, we also reduce the noise levels to any potential neighbors?
Absolutely.
In your opinion, in the granting of this variance, any effect on the neighbors?
None.
Any effect on air, light, or open space?
I think the layout of the plan actually provides the most light, air, and open space that you can have on this particular home.
And it provides privacy for the homeowner, but also provides a beautiful landscaped area as you come into Margate from Ventnor or as you go down Andover Avenue.
That was the intention, to have all this greenery and shrubbery to maintain the street line and yet provide privacy to the sun.
And from the sidewalk to our property is technically where the fence will be, is we're 7 feet away.
That's
because the
correct.
city has the right-of-way in between.
Absolutely. We have 4 feet from the edge of the sidewalk to the property line, and then there the shrubs begin, 3 feet over, then the fence.
I don't have any other questions, Ms. Cummings. I'd open it up to the board.
Let me ask you something on that last comment. Where do we see the edge of the sidewalk there?
Technically, the sidewalk is, if this is your sidewalk, there's a right-of-way that the city owns, then our property line, and then an additional 3 feet to where the fence is. So from where your fence is to your sidewalk is 7 feet. 3 feet of which is our property, which would be landscaped, 4 feet, which is still going to be grassed area that, the homeowner winds up maintaining since it's part of the right-of-way. So you have 4 feet of grass, 3 feet of shrubs, fence, and then shrubs on the inside.
You said the fence was a wrought iron, open kind of fence, but the shrubs covered up.
That's right. The shrubs being very thick, evergreens, and quality pine trunks.
The fence just keeps people from pulling out.
Not only pool house, but I think it's, from a code point of view,
Yeah.
that we need the 6-foot fence. Correct.
So you basically won't see the fence through the shrubberies?
No.
Not unless you get real close, but no.
Okay.
Terry, can you revise your drawing to be more specific about the height of these bushes? Because on here it says 18 inches high.
Well, that is the minimum required, I think it says that minimum required as per city code. The intention is to make them much taller.
Right.
Well, if that's what you're intending to do, I think it should be
No.
documented.
We are. We read Roger's report. We've had the opportunity to talk with the builder and the owner. So the shrubs that would be going in, the evergreens that would be going in at 6-foot high level to begin with. So we're not waiting for 5 years of growth to catch up to it.
So you'll revise
Yes,
your plan.
correct.
Could I, Terry, could we see the side elevation where you have the pool equipment and the air conditioner? I want to make sure that the neighbor in back, the Previties, are protected. Is there a buffer, a closure?
I have it in plan right here.
Okay.
To show you that here on the first floor, that in the doors would be the pool equipment, so we have ventilation that's needed for the equipment. And then in here, under an archway, are the air conditioning condenser units.
And there are doors? I'm sorry, there are doors enclosing the pool equipment room?
For the pool equipment, there are doors.
Okay.
These are open for servicing. I actually believe we have a final drawing. I can show you that elevation if you'd like to see it.
But the air conditioner has to be screened. How are you screening?
But it would be lattice work screening, so that it
Okay,
would be easy to
all right,
remove.
okay.
Do you want to see the elevation?
Yeah. Just want to make sure it complies with the ordinance. Lattice work screening would comply with the ordinance.
While Terry's doing that, one of Mr. Rubin's comments was to consolidate the two lots into one prior to permits, and that was agreeable to all parties, so that condition we can fulfill. Any other questions?
Okay, any other questions from the board?
It's gonna have a grill, a gas grill. But it will be no bigger than what is permitted, which is the 80 square feet, and no more than 9 feet.
Sink, running water, sewer.
We're having a sink at the outdoor kitchen? We hadn't got that far. I assume to be a grill.
Okay, any questions or comments from the public?
Just briefly, I'm Benjamin Zeltner with the law firm Levin Starr of Atlantic City. I represent the Previty Trust, which is the home right next door. I believe it's 7401 Atlantic on the Atlantic City side. And we would just like the board, per the application and Mr. Callahan's comments, to make as a condition of any building permits that the two lots be consolidated into one with evidence provided to the board. Thank you.
I think that's agreed upon, right?
Right.
That's correct.
Karen Herlick.
To talk into the mic.
Herlich.
And your home address, please.
14 South Andover.
Please raise your right hand.
14 South.
Please swear the testimony you're about to give is not the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes. My only comment is I built a house a couple years ago, and I also had only a certain amount of space. I did what I had to do to abide by the new variance. The whole street is basically going to be a tear down. What are they going to do when 6 other homes want some kind of provision?
Well, I mean, in general, this board hears every case strictly on its own merits based on a particular set of facts, and that's why it exists to
Absolutely.
give variations from the ordinance if it sees fit. So no precedent is set by doing this. If they approve it, it's because they feel like it's warranted in this case, and they may not approve something else somewhere else. So there's, just have to wait and see.
Okay, and also that the shrubs on Fredericksburg, on Andover, on Atlantic and Fredericksburg, that's also an old home that had different setbacks. When you're saying that the fence is going to basically line right up with it, if that house was, that's an older home.
Our fence is set back off the property line. Their hedges are
On the property line.
on the property line or over. I mean, it's hard.
It is, right, it's hard to walk by.
It's hard, there, but I mean, our shrubs are 3 feet in, the fence is 3 feet inside our property line.
Anybody else?
Harriet Lamberg, Lamberg, 12 South Andover. Yes. I also am the other new house on Andover. And on the opposite side and that side, I'm more concerned with Andover than Atlantic. I think there's a reason why we have new zoning. I think 7 feet on these lots in Margate is significant. And I think when that side of the street turns over, that's going to be awkward. And I think all the houses, there's new zoning for a reason. And I think we should live by it. So that's really what I have to say, because right now, these houses are concrete buildings kind of up against the sidewalk, and I know they're proposing the shrubs, but it's still close in, and there was a reason why we had to play by the rules. And I think it's going to be, look, I think you guys worked as hard as you did to propose all this zoning for a reason. So, thank you.
Okay, anybody else from the public? Okay, public portion is closed.
Just a brief conclusion. We're building a new single-family home. It's on an oversized lot that we have. We've tried to be sensitive from a setback point of view. Where you could have a 5-foot setback off the front, we've pushed it to 11. Where you had pool equipment in the past, we've hidden the pool equipment, we've secured the air conditioning equipment, the fencing. By setting it back 3 feet on Atlantic Avenue will have no impact on anyone's visual environment, light, air, or open space. It lines up with Dr. Prev's along Andover Avenue. Once again, it becomes invisible. It becomes shrubs. It becomes landscaping area. The fence is still hidden by those things. It just provides a pool surround. So it will not have any type of a negative impact on the neighborhood or the zoning plan by granting. All it does is give a new person building a new home in the city of Margate an opportunity to design a home, to live in a home that will not have a negative impact on your neighborhood and provides a new visual environment to the neighborhood and is very endearing to its neighbors in the sense of setbacks off the side, setbacks off the front, setbacks off the rear in compliance. Once again, it's an oversized lot. It's a minor variance with no detrimental impact to the character of the neighborhood or the zoning plan. So we ask for your approval. Thank you.
The conditions would be 8 sets of revised plans showing the 6-foot-high wrought iron or privacy fence, evergreens shown at 6 feet high at planting, indicate lattice at the air conditioner, which is not specifically shown on the plan, and if approved, evidence of lot consolidation submitted prior to plan execution.
Make a motion to approve 21 South Andover Avenue.
I'll second it.
The variance would specifically be a C variance. As requested, it's 3 feet. The requirement is 10 feet. Please just place your reasons on the record once you vote.
C variance for what again?
The fence.
Fence locations.
Tom Collins?
Not too long ago, this property was in here, and we actually did a subdivision where we were going to end up with two houses on this one particular lot. The way that Terry has redesigned this, and all the open air and space and the setbacks, I think, are just tremendous. This on Andover Avenue is probably one of the most unique properties you're going to find because you're on the corner. And because of the city right-of-way, which is bumping you way back, you're going to have tremendous amount of openness in this area versus 2 homes, which I'm sure the builder would have loved to have 2 homes, but I, for the city, think that this is a big asset, and I think it has no negative impacts on the neighborhood. Every possible negative impact was eliminated through your design, which is kind of nice. Not too many architects do that. And the positive is real simple. It's going to really improve the neighborhood. You're going to get rid of a dirt lot, and you're not going to have 2 big monster homes or overcrowding on the street. So I vote in favor.
Adio Santori?
When I looked at this application, I had a concern about the variance requested, the only variance incidentally. And then it's explained to me now that the city has 7 feet of property that technically could be used by the applicant as equal from the edge of the sidewalk to the fence, 10 feet, which I think is substantial. I want to approve the application. All the other reasons that Tom just gave.
Bill Gottrell?
what type of fence it's going to be, and the way the shrubs are lined up, it's pretty much going to be hidden and away from sight, and actually soften that Atlantic Avenue and part of the Andover Avenue side. I don't think it's detrimental, so I approve the application.
Clem Waslewski?
Roger, the only thing we're concerned here about is the fence.
Yeah.
The condition was 6-foot-high privacy or black wrought iron. What's your concern?
Considering just the proposed new fence with its related landscaping, I don't see how that's going to have any negative impact on the view corridor from the properties to the bay side of this. So I vote yes.
Jim Galantino?
I have one question for the board. There's consolidation of the two lots to one. Is that a condition or was that not?
That is a condition.
Yes. I vote yes for this building. I know you're concerned about the building setback, but at this point, they did a front yard setback survey, which shows they met every house on that street. They're not here for a variance for that, they're only here for the fence. So we can't hear your argument on the other issue. Only can vote on the fence. So I approve the 3-foot.
It is a beautiful house.
I approve the 3-foot. Yes.
Commissioner Talby?
I approve the C variance. It is a pretty house. I agree with you. All of the conditions have been met, and I appreciate that. And I think the fence and the hedge will line up nicely with the neighbor, so I approve.
Mike Cristaldi?
I think any time that we can get two lots back into one, I think we should definitely vote yes on it, so I vote yes for this.
Ned Humphreys?
I vote in the affirmative. I think it'll be a very, very nice appointment for that street, and the continuation of the shrubbery along Atlantic Avenue will be beautiful. I vote yes.
Michael Richmond?
I think that the proximity of the pool to Atlantic Avenue and not next door to somebody else's house where there could be some, noise issues or whatever is not applicable, so I'm going to vote yes.
Okay, vote is 9 yes, 0 no.
I move we adjourn.
Okay. Can I make a
Thank you very
motion to
much.
adjourn?
Thank you, Bill.
Nice job, Mike.
Thank you.
Nice job.
Oh, you were good. Thanks.
Well, yeah.
Until next time.
Until next time.